let us proceed with session 1 of an exciting panel discussion on creating conducive grounds towards conflict resolution. I now invite panelists of the session, Justice Ramesh Dhanuka, Dr. Mahesh Karindikar, Srimati Manisha Verma, Dr. Ananda Balyogi, and moderator of the session, Ms. Tanu Mehta, on stage. We are delighted to introduce you to the distinguished dignitaries of our first panel. Our first panelist is Justice Ramesh D. Dhanuka, who retired as the Chief Justice of Bombay High Court in May 2023, is a well-loved judge known for his composed demeanor and sharp acumen. His calmness and fairness whilst dealing with the toughest cases has earned him many accolades. He started his practice of law at Bombay High Court in 1985. In 2013, Justice Ramesh D. Dhanuka was confirmed as permanent judge of the Bombay High Court and was later elevated as the Chief Justice of Bombay High Court in 2023. Justice R.D. Dhanuka is now part of the Apex Advisory Committee of IMC International ADR Center. It is our honor to have you with us, sir. Our next panelist is Dr. Mahesh Karindikar, a celebrated neurosurgeon. Sir is the chairman and managing director of Karindikar Hospital of Neurosciences and Research Center, Nasik. He is an active member of many medical organizations like Neurological Society of India, World Stroke Organization, North American Spine Society, European Epilepsy Society, Multiple Sclerosis Society, and many more. He is a committee member of the Maharashtra University of Health Sciences and has been awarded many prestigious awards, including Man of the Year in Medicine 2008 award by the American Society. He has published a book on spine and brain surgery in Marathi, which is used as a reference book by the government of Maharashtra in schools and colleges. We welcome you, sir. Our next panelist is Srimati Manisha Verma. Srimati Manisha Verma is a seasoned Indian Administrative Services officer and an alumnus of the Harvard Kennedy School and IDS Sussex. She has held prominent positions in various sectors, including finance, education, tribal development, skill development, and entrepreneurship. Her dedication to sustainable, inclusive, and innovative programs has earned her numerous accolades. She is an expert on social development, leadership training, public policy, and management. She is presently serving as the Principal Secretary and Managing Director of Maharashtra State Finance Corporation. Thank you, ma'am, for being here with us today. Our final panelist of this session is Dr. Anand Balyogi. Yogacharya Dr. Anand Balyogi Bhavnani is by education a medical doctor and by passion a Yog Sadhak. He is the director of the Institute of Salutogenesis and Complementary Medicine and professor of Yoga Therapy at the Sri Balaji Vidyapeeth University, Pondicherry. Sir has served as member of numerous expert committees of the Ministry of Ayush. He is the chairman of the International Center for Yoga Education and Research at Anand Ashram, Pondicherry. He is a gold medalist in medical studies with postgraduate diplomas in both family health as well as yoga. His literary work have more than 3,100 citations with an H index of 28 and an I-10 index of 63. In addition, he is a classical Indian vocalist, percussionist, music composer, and choreographer of Indian classical dance. He is an honorary advisor to International Association of Yoga Therapists. We extend a hearty welcome to you, sir. Thank you for being here. Our moderator of this session is Tanu Mehta. Tanu Mehta is a legal professional, mediator, and conflict resolution specialist with over 25 plus years of experience. She is currently also the honorary chairperson of the Committee for Mediation and Conciliation at the Bombay Chamber of Commerce at Mumbai. She was the first Indian to have studied a master's degree in mediation from Israel. and was instrumental in launching India's first MA in Mediation and Conflict Resolution whilst acting as Director of the Center for Mediation and Research at the Maharashtra National Law University, Mumbai. Tanu is empaneled with many mediation institutions, both private and governmental, apart from being an accredited member mediator of the High Court of Bombay and the City Civil and Sessions Court. She is also one of the founder members of Association of Mediation Practitioner and is an advisor to India's first dispute management company called Presolve 360. We welcome you with us, ma'am. I now hand over the proceedings to the moderator. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dimple, for this wonderful introduction. Since we have started late, I'm going to cut down my opening remarks. I think our first symposium covered the connections and the dots between yoga, internal resolution and external resolution. My remarks were actually supposed to bring how this gathering here in a yoga ashram can actually help us as mediators, as lawyers, as judges even, to bring better resolution. But that was so beautifully connected in the first session that we can avoid this, and I can go straight away to our first speaker of the day, who deserves his full time of speech. Welcome, sir.
My Lord Justice Srikrishna, Justice Radhakrishnan, Justice Bhatkar, the Learned Advocate General, my sister Tanu Tiwari, other co-speakers, and the members of audience who have come all the way from Bombay and other parts to attend this symposium. I retired in May 2023. And everybody started telling me that this is your third inning now. So you will be doing arbitrations, you will be doing court practice. Some of my retired colleagues told me that you have to charge minimum so much. You don't settle any matter. This is a very seasonal time to earn because more and more judges will retire. You will start getting less work. And at the same time, I got invitation from Sister Tanu that you have to tell us how to create conducive grounds towards conflict resolution without intervention of court. So there was a conflict whether I should follow my friend's advice and make money immediately within a short period, or I should try to resolve some disputes by practicing or taking benefit of yoga and without intervention of court. So because of this conflict, then again, I being a student of yoga for last so many years, I practiced pranayam. I applied pranayam again and resolved this conflict that I should not listen to my friends, whether I earn within first 5 years or it may be a lifetime achievement. But I must try my best to see that some matters I am able to resolve by taking or applying the principles of yoga. So this way my conflict was resolved. When there are people, there is bound to be conflict. We have our values, needs and habits. So it's easy to misunderstand another, or worse, to fall into a conflict. My personal view is that every person has a God within. He knows the truth. When a litigant comes to you, other side litigant will go to some other advocate. He knows the truth. People say that litigants know the truth and judge is on trial. So if you have God within, I personally feel that you can sort out your conflicts yourself. At the first instance, you know the truth. You know how much you owe to somebody, how much other owe to you, and follow the path of God by applying principles of yoga, mediation. You will be able to solve your disputes. You are not required to go to any advocate, and consequently you are not required to approach the court of law. So at the first instance, by applying the principles by mediation, by pranayam, which I particularly do, you can resolve your own disputes. That is one of the method according to me at the first level itself. Second level is that if for any reason you are not able to resolve your dispute or resolve your conflict, then of course in that event either you can appear in person or you take assistance of a lawyer. So if lawyer is also practicing yoga and he is doing mediation, then he will also try at the first instance without intervention of court to see that matter is resolved outside court. He can preach yoga, mediation and meditation and see to that matter is solved. If it is not resolved at that stage also, then of course you have to come to court of law. And then if judges are also following the principles and practicing yoga, then even at that stage, without much delay, without much argument, you can persuade parties to resolve their conflict by practicing yoga. My practice in court when I was a judge, how to calm down the litigants and their advocates who are very aggressive sometimes. They don't want to listen to anybody, they just want to see that their arguments are heard immediately in priority to the other side, because their clients are watching your performance and judge is unable to understand who is speaking what because both sides are arguing at a time. They are so aggressive. So I used to take first lamba saas. My Lord Justice Chandrachud said lamba saas. So I will do that meditation for 2 minutes myself, close my eyes and then look at the advocates and tell them also that look, you also do some meditation for 2 minutes. Then we'll discuss about your matter. So by this method, you have to calm down the person who is very aggressive before you, so that he will listen to your advice, he will think over the matter with positive mind. Outside the court, when a litigant comes, how do you settle the matter? First you have to tell him, you have to just calm him down, make him comfortable, you talk something general about his hobbies, how many members are there in the family, what are you doing and all that. Mediation is one of the art which I like, where you can talk to both the sides individually. There my experience was that you can tell one of the party about something good about your opponent. That is a unique criteria by which if you are able to remove the poison from one party about the other, then he will start thinking positively and he will try to hear you about the settlement what you try to propose. Same thing when the other side comes to your chamber, you have to explain him or her also that look, your opponent is very good, he talks always good about you. You praise your opponent, his opponent in presence of, in his absence. The party who is with full anger and prejudice, he will calm down and he will listen to you. This is one idea I had followed in most of the matters. Of course, after this invitation received from Kevalya Dham, that how to resolve the conflicts outside the court, I also started doing that in some of my arbitrations. Whether it is, I'm going to lose that brief or not, that is not very relevant for me. But I want to see that some matters are resolved without argument stage. Otherwise, arbitration award is not a final stage. That is only the first stage. Thereafter, matter will go to single judge of the High Court, thereafter division bench and then Supreme Court. And then execution is the last stage, which is the most difficult stage. Advocates, about advocates, I would say that they should be prepared to lose one brief if the matter is settled. If that is the criteria, if you follow that, that will be possible only if you imbibe the principles of yoga. You will have a purity in your mind, you will not think something negative, you will not give wrong advice to your client. If you give the correct advice, you advise them to settle the matter amicably. That will be the benefit of yoga. Matter can be resolved at that stage. One matter you lose, doesn't matter. One satisfied client who is happy with your advice and matter is settled, he will tell other 50 people, because lawyers are not allowed to advertise. One satisfied client will send you another 10 clients, and if one dissatisfied client who has been looted by the advocate, unfortunately, in some matter, then he will take away your 100 clients. The step of preparing the parties helps in ending the prejudice of parties to some extent, to help them think with a clearer state of mind. The process of preparing the parties for discussion plays a vital role in the entire procedure of conflict resolution, as it sets the tone of the discussion ahead. Parties have to be convinced that though settlement at this stage may not be as per their expectation, but in future they will be satisfied that they had agreed for settlement. As judges, sometimes it becomes very difficult to convince the parties to settle because you have a very heavy board. All judges are overloaded. Now sitting judges, I am out of the institution, but I have still sympathy for all my colleagues who are still sitting judges. And we are all overloaded, though we want to settle some matters. But in view of the heavy board you have every day, it may not be possible to settle or make efforts to settle every matter. Either you sit in chamber during lunch hours and discuss with them, or after court hours, or if you do it during court hours, then you will be able to dispose of maybe one or two matters when the board is of 100 matters on every day. About my personal experience, which I want to share in 2 minutes, then I will wind up. One matter which I always remember, which gave me good satisfaction all throughout my life, it will be that I was briefed in a matter where one advocate was having the age of 80. He had some dispute with his two sons. They were also practicing. Office was purchased by the father. Children grown up, they have started practicing taxation side. So somehow there was some difference or conflict between father and sons. Sons were of the view that my father is outdated now. He doesn't follow the new practice, new style of practice, and he is obstruction in our practice. So because of such dispute, some proceedings were filed before city civil court, some were in high court, and I was briefed on behalf of the father by a solicitor. How I could settle that matter, I want to share with you. It was a pro bono matter for me. But I must clarify, because some lawyer friends are sitting in the gathering. Merely because it was pro bono, I did not settle the matter. I wanted to settle the matter because I realized that parties should get justice. It is a dispute between father and sons. I took courage. I don't know. I got that courage whether I can talk to the other side, because in our system you can't talk to your opponent. You can talk to your opponent advocate, not the litigant. But somehow I got that courage. Father was coming to court and sons were coming to court. Both were advocates. So I spoke to them in Gujarati. I can speak little bit Gujarati. I said, શું કામ તમે લોકો લડો છો બાપા? ફાધરને જુઓ તમે, 80 વર્ષના થઈ ગયા હવે. Till what time you will fight? And what I found from the pleadings, that because of this litigation, there were allegations, counter allegations, and because of that, there was so much hatred, or relations had become so strained that they were not willing to listen to each other. So I first found out from the children that what do you want exactly, tell me if I can give some assistance. So say that my father should not come to office because we are now developing new practice, we have big clientele and father wants to continue his old pattern of practice. So he should not come. When I asked father, what do you want at this age, you are already 80. He says that it is my office, how can my sons obstruct me to come to my office? I have developed this practice, I am entitled to come, and I am not I don't want to be at the mercy of my children. Even at this age, I want to earn something myself. Therefore, I should go to my office. I may not sit there for whole day. But I will leave it to you. I have full faith in you. So in one of at the stage of hearing, I found grandchildren also came to court. And daughter-in-law of the old man also came. So I told them, children, what do you want? He says, sir, what can I do? I want to meet my grandparents, but because of the dispute between my parents and my grandfather, I am not able to meet my grandfather and grandmother. So I asked daughter-in-law, what is your problem? He says, my mother-in-law has not given me some jewelry, therefore I don't want to have any relation with my mother. I said, all these problems are because of some ego or maybe because of some allegations and counter-allegations made in the pleadings. Because it happens that many times you don't tell the exact instructions what you receive from your client when you draft your pleading. You try to improve your case by making allegations and counter-allegations, and that by reading, and more particularly when litigants are advocates, they will read and they will not be able to settle. So with assistance of other side, then 1 or 2 meetings were organized at the residence of the advocates. And there, those children, they were made to sit by the side of grandmother. And I requested the wife of my client that you please part with your some jewelry. Now you are already 75. What will you do with this jewelry? Please give it to your daughter-in-law. Ultimately, they will be the survivor of all this after your demise. Daughter-in-law also agreed that all right, my demand was so much, but even if something by way of affection and blessings, with your intervention I will get, I will accept it. So children were made to sit with grandmother. Father agreed to sit in the chamber for 3 hours when sons are not there, when they are busy with their practice in court or before the income tax tribunal. That solution was found out. The sons also started respecting the father. They also started giving 10,000 rupees per month to father. Father had his own practice, whatever what it is. And as a result of that, the entire family, they came together. They gave me, my client asked me, sir, what about your fees? I said, my fees will be, I am going to take your fees from you. Give me the maximum blessings what you can give me. I don't want any fees. This gives me a satisfaction that by my hand one family has been reunited. Thereafter, father sold that flat. Father started staying with his 2 sons at Borivali. And there was a wedding when I was also invited. And when in front of his relatives, they introduced me that only because of Mr. Dhanuka, we are all together. So our blessings are always with him. Thank you very much once again for inviting me.
I'll now invite Dr. Karindikar to give a completely different perspective from law.
Good afternoon, everybody on the dais. In this August gathering of primarily lawyers and honorable members of judiciary, many of you might be wondering what a neurosurgeon is doing here. The whole idea is to know whether the brain can be restructured, the brain circuits can be rewired to create conducive ground for conflict resolution. And if the answer is yes, then could this make an individual a better person? Could this build up better societies, better nations, and a better world to live in? For this, we need to understand few basic things about brain. See, brain is different from all other organs in the body because every single organ in human body has exactly same structure in every individual. Like all of us have eyes with exactly same structure. So whenever you are looking at somebody else, you register exactly the same picture. everybody has exactly same ear. So whatever I'm talking, all of you are hearing the same sentence, but everybody has exactly similar structured brain which functions entirely differently in every single individual building personalities. That's the mystery of brain. Now, there is a famous story from Cherokee culture which comes from the Smoky Mountains in North Carolina. The story is told by the grandfather to the little child. It talks about two wolves in the brain. Everybody's brain has got two wolves. One represents aggression, hatred, disgust, and the second represents love, affection, friendship, forgiveness. And the story goes, and which wolf wins decides everything. And the message which is given by the grandfather to the child is always try to nurture the good wolf for making a better life. Now, can this message be percolated into the society deeper down? For this, we need to understand a few basic things about brain. Brain has different parts. One part is temporal lobe, which is the seat of emotion. And the other one is frontal and the prefrontal lobe, which is a seat of intelligence. Usually, when you respond to something, the response comes from the frontal and the prefrontal cortexes. This response is based on intellectual facts, proper analysis, thoughtfulness. The temporal lobe, which is a seat of emotions, if the response comes from there, then this is a response of unthoughtful aggression, pure emotionality, not understanding the pros and cons, and it's what we call is a knee-jerk reflex. So many times the behavioral response, if it is purely restricted to temporal lobe, then there is something called a neural hijacking. The frontal lobe is hijacked and the temporal lobe doesn't allow the frontal lobe to function to its optimum level, and that's why many times things go wrong. To understand the behavioral responses, we can think of 5 different areas in brain. See, the initial question which I raised, restructuring of the brain and rewiring of the neuronal circuits, is a very big topic. I'm trying to touch few things because I'm pretty aware that I'm talking to a non-medical platform. There are 5 levels in the brain from which the response comes. As we evolved, the human brain is the most evolved brain amongst all species. So as we evolved, the brain evolved from the reptilian brain. The reptilian brain is a very basic brain, it deals with very basic function. So if the response comes from the reptilian brain, then it is an irrational, illogical response, emotional response. The next level of brain is the limbic brain, where there is some element of emotion, either positive emotion or negative emotion. The third level is the cortical level, where there is some analytical foundation to the response. The fourth level is prefrontal cortex, which has some element of passion, forgiveness, and consideration. And the last is, of course, beyond the brain, intuitions and better thinking about the society and the world from that perspective. And interestingly, as you study Patanjali Yoga, the opening verses of Samadhi Pada are Atha Yoganushasanam and Yoga Chittavritti Nirodha, the basic definitions of yoga. And Vyasa's commentary on this underlines 5 different states of mind, which corresponds to these 5 levels of responses coming from the brain, which I just spoke about neuroscientifically. The first one is Kshipta Chitta, or Kshipta response from the mind, which is a wandering mind like a monkey, jumping mind. The second one is Muda mind, or a full mind, donkey's mind. The third one is Vikshipta mind, which is, partially focused like a butterfly. The fourth level is Ekagra mind, one pointed mind, which is comparable to the mind of the crane when he's focused on the prey. And the last one is the Niruddha Chitta, which is the most balanced and always focused mind. So the whole journey of progression has to be from Kshipta to Niruddha. And Patanjali Yoga in the Samadhi Path gives a detailed flow chart as to how to progress from the primitive level to a higher level. Also mentioning in verse 30th and 31st the possible obstacles, not stopping before giving the solutions to those obstacles in verse number 32. neuroscientifically speaking, Subodhji in the morning session spoke about some scientific publications, and there is no time for me to quote various papers, but I would just quote a publication published in British Medical Journal just 6 months back in the June issue, which is a systematic review of 1,663 research publications which underline the importance of yoga, meditation, pranayam in the improvement in physical health as well as mental health, emotional health, psychological health. So those of you who want to go into the details, just go through this publication of British Medical Journal in June. Now, the basic functioning and the optimum response from the brain depends on the state of neuronal chemicals. See, neuronal circuits have junctions which are full of chemicals called neurotransmitters, and there are various hundreds of types of chemicals, but important group of chemicals is serotonin, which deals with peace, happiness, love, affection, and the other one is dopamine, which is related to aggression. So the dynamic equilibrium between serotonin and dopamine decides the behavioral outcome. How does this knowledge help us? When we are doing arbitration or mediation, the factors which can improve serotonin, if we implicate, say simple, chocolate would improve the levels of serotonin, a nice peaceful music would improve the levels of serotonin, a nice attire, friendly gesture, shaking hands, good perfumes, all these can, create high serotonin levels and increase the conduciveness of mediation and arbitration. And the whole idea is to change the way you look at the world, because the world remains the same. In Kashmiri Shaivism, it has been mentioned that there is a verse called Vismayo Yoga Bhumika, means the world is same, but if you change your vision to look at the same world, you will find the world very different, very conducive. And our goal of all this is to achieve this. Again, since the time is limited, we already started pretty late. Tanuji has planned some question-answer sessions. Before I stop, I would just end with one sentence which probably would make all of us think. My stubbornness for a costly pair of shoes disappeared when I saw somebody with amputated legs. So I think over this, and when somebody comes for conflict resolution, ask them whether this valuable life, this short amount of time, energy and money you have, is it worth spending in years of conflicts and adjudication? Because finally adjudication would make one person happy, as against this platform which can make everybody happy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm sorry you had to cut down on your speech because of time, but that was a fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Our next speaker, Dr. Anand Balyogi. Would you like to speak from there, or would you like to come here? Would you like?
This way it's easier for you to see me because I'm not too tall. So you will not see much of me. Here you see the whole of me. And yoga is based on a holistic perspective. So you should see the wholesome me, I should see the wholesome you. And the moment we see the wholesomeness in each other, there's no conflict anymore. Conflict starts with a sense of duality. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says, from Dvitiyam comes Bhayam. From Dvitiyam comes Bhayam. I am not afraid of Dr. Mahesh. Why? Because we are kindred spirits. That is why we keep on sitting next to each other whenever we come to Kaivalya Dhamma. They don't even know it, but we always are sitting next to each other. And when he speaks, I feel myself speaking. See, when you can see yourself in the other person, and when you can see the other person in yourself, where is fear? Because fear is the most primordial emotion we have. According to Maharishi Patanjali, it is called Abhinivesha Klesha. He says Abhinivesha Klesha, the desire to survive at any cost, is found in the most learned people also. He says it is on autopilot. Autopilot. He says, Swarasavahi vidusho api samarudaha abhinivesha. Patanjali is the end-all be-all of everything in yoga psychology. If I feel you are different than me, I get scared. I say, what if he gives my points? He is also a medical doctor, I am a medical doctor. What if he says whatever I want to say? What if our respected justice says everything I want to say, or my dear Manisha ji says it? And what if Tanu gets angry at me for saying what I want to say? The moment I think about the other person as another, I have seeded conflict. When two people love each other, they will not go to the divorce court. Have you ever met two people who love each other wanting to have a divorce? What has happened? When there is love, there is oneness. The moment you say you are different than me, separation, fear. And that is why yoga is based on the principle of oneness. Ekam. Maharishi Ramana, the last great Maharishi of our country at Tiruvannamalai, the saint of Arunachala, he says, somebody asked him, Ramana, how do you deal with others? See, we have read the same book, sameness. How do you deal with others? He said, there's no other. There's no other. If there's no other, where will conflict arise? And hence, Patanjali again gives us a beautiful tool called Pratipaksha Bhavanam. Developing the contrary attitude. Whenever our beloved Justice mentioned recently, he said, let the person hear something positive about the opponent. See, the moment I can see something positive in you, I have diluted my enmity towards you. So you may not love the other person completely. Normally we translate Pratipaksha Bhavanam. If you hate somebody, replace it with love. Easier said than done. Try it and you'll fail. But what you can do is you can say, can I see something good in the other person? Can I see something right in their argument? Can I see something wrong in my argument? Can you ask yourself that question? That is Pratipaksha Bhavanam. And that is what yoga gives us. Again, the capacity to bounce back, resilience. It is said 99 times down, 100 times up. There's nothing wrong in falling down. What is wrong is if you don't get up. And that is why, again, the greatest scripture on psychological counseling, well, the first is Yoga Vashishta, where Rama gets counseled by sage Vashishta. The second recorded, these are recorded counseling sessions. First recorded counseling session, Krishna to Arjuna. Vashishta to Rama. Second is Krishna to Arjuna, Bhagavad Gita. We are all Arjuna. We are all having that Vishada. And we all need a Krishna in our life. Where is that Krishna? Not outside. Srikrishna ji is right here. But it is the Srikrishna ji within us. It is the Krishna within us. Now, because we are talking so much, I thought I'll give you something you can do in the next 2.5, 3 minutes. Can I? Okay. Mahesh ji made my job easy. He said there are 5 levels. He talked about the reptilian brain, this back of the brain, brain stem. That is the one that is hell-bent on survival at any cost. Kill your mother, kill your father, sell the nation, sell yourself, survive. That is back here, survive at any cost. Then, the front of the brain is where you can think of others and your buddhi is. This is the buddhi. Buddhiman Manushya we have to be. That is why Krishna wants us to be that buddhiman who has the buddhi. But before that, we have conflicts which lead to frustration and that leads to anxiety and stress. So where is the first anxiety? Right in the abdomen. This is the one where, oh my God, I have to give a speech today. My stomach is sinking. Second one is here, relationship. Will they like me or not? Yes or no? And the third is up here. We all have that, I am such a great person, everybody should respect me. And because you think you are great, you think everybody is disrespecting you. Recently, a dear friend of mine said he was insulted at a meeting. I'm like, you had the greatest respect from my point of view. When I was sitting in the audience, it looked like you got respect on stage, but you feel disrespected. Because hamara ahankar to itna bada hai. We can never satisfy it. How do we approach this? We have a nada bhavana shuddhi kriya. Bhavana shuddhi karna chahiye. Uske liye to simplest way is nad. Okay, so we are going to do this. Can I request you all to please stand up? You have been sitting for some time and all the blood will be in your legs now. We want to get it up into your brain. So we are going to hold our hands on the stomach area and make a sound, ha. See, there are so many of you. Ha. That's better. Okay, now we are going to do it as ha, 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 ha. Great. Now here, ho, 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 ho. He. You're all amazing. See, this is why you come to Kaivalya Dhamma and you don't have to give them special training. They already are there. Okay, so we are releasing performance anxiety, relationship anxiety, and status anxiety. Then we address this old primitive part. We go, me. You know, me, that makes us so mean. You should look as mean as you can. And then we go, thee. Okay, so from shifting from me to thee. From just my perspective to the other person's perspective. There is a leap of consciousness from the back of the brain to the front of the brain. Okay, so me. Thee. And then we realize Sarvam Brahmamayam. So we go. And we throw it all out, okay? Let's try this now. Once again. Ha. Ho. He. Me. They. Go. Ha. Ho. He. Me. They. Go. Yes, perfect. Now there's no conflict. There's no conflict. You don't need a resolution of conflict. There's no tension. There's no anxiety. And as Dr. Mahesh said, all the endorphins, enkephalins, serotonin, melatonin, dopamine, oxytocin, everything is there. And I don't find a single person in this room who's not smiling. Is there anybody who's not smiling? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Babu. I am wondering how we will ever bring something like this into any formal system of law, of administration, of anything that's going on in India. But nevertheless, at least it's good to be aware. And I would now like to welcome Ms. Manisha Verma, who deals with a very, very difficult system. I mean, living within the Indian administrative system itself is a very, very stressful job. And here she is trying to smile and trying to say, yes, I can work on it.
So I think I must first thank Dr. Balyogi for releasing all my performance and every other anxiety. And he's also given a mandate that I cannot hide behind, so I cannot take any papers. You have to see me holistically, so here I am, and just to share my experiences. I think basically as a civil servant who has dealt both with field situations, law and order situations, and very, very complex situations on the ground, as well as somebody who has been involved in policy level, both at the center and state level, I think I will just give you a few, one or two examples, and then come to try to understand what are the kind of attributes that help in conflict resolution. I mean, you just can't enter into anybody's conflict, not even into your neighbor's house. Either someone, you should be having some position of some legitimate mandate to resolve some conflict. And like when you have judges or you have arbitrators or you have mediators who are given the task by the parties and the mandate is given to them. Or you take this mandate out of your position or sense of responsibility because you are holding certain position where you have to arbitrate conflicts. And when you see a potential conflict or an issue of injustice, you must be able to intervene and take a proactive and leadership role to resolve that conflict. So I'll give you brief examples. When I was, and both come from my DMship days, or I can talk one from BMO and one from my field. So one was that when I was returning, I was collector of Amravati, district magistrate and collector of Amravati division in Vidarbha, way back in 2001 to 4. And there is a whole huge Melghat tiger reserve area that some of you might have visited. And there it is basically, Korpus are the inhabitants, they are the tribal people over there. And they live in forest areas for generations, and they cultivate forest land. And once when I was returning from field visits at night, almost around 8 o'clock at night, I was crossing those villages, and there was a group of women who stopped before my car. I had just one constable, and it was pitch dark, and that area has leopards all the time. So I just got down from my car, and the women were wailing and weeping. And when I asked them, they said कि forest department ने हमारे आमचे शेतावर हत्ती सोडलेला आहे. Means that the forest department has let loose their elephants to raise our standing crops. कारण त्यांना ते आम्हाला अतिक्रमण आम्ही केलेलं आहे जंगल जमिनीवर, त्याचं त्यांचं म्हणणं आहे. That means that they are treating us like encroachers because we don't have rights over the land that we are cultivating. And so I sat down with them, I went to their village, I was with them till late night, I was sitting down on the ground with them in one of their huts and listening to them. And then I tried to come back and study the issue. And then I discovered that there are forest villages in the whole of Melghat area where, and it is a problem across the country, that during the British regime, the large areas were notified as forest areas, and there were already communities historically living on those areas who did not have any settlement rights, and their rights were not settled. And so they are deemed encroachers and treated like criminals under law. So that led to one intervention that I actually constituted. I studied the law, existing circulars, and then we identified what are the issues. Obviously, the forest department would not give the parcels of land which belong to them on legal record. The villagers who are living there don't have any documentation proof of legality of land, क्योंकि उनके land record जो हम 7-12 गाँव में बोलते हैं, that they were never drawn for them. So then I worked out a whole campaign called One Putra Abhiyan, in which we actually constituted Gram Sabhas, village level committees, in which we had the forest guard, the Sarpanch, the police patil, the Gram Sevak, and the 3 senior most oldest elders living in the village who had historical memory. We created case papers of every single village person who was cultivating. We did the Gram Sabha inspections. We had that committee to make a proposal to the Taluka level committee, which again had a range forest officer, a tribal person, panchayat people. And then we created a district level committee, and we created a structure of appeal, but in a time bound manner, starting with if it was a rejection at the Gram Sabha level. Now what I'm trying to say is that in that, we honestly tried as district administration to understand that we have to give land to people who are already cultivating historically, and their livelihood depends on that agriculture. Small plot, very, very poor tribal families. But we cannot make it an open door for anyone to encroach today by creating a very umbrella kind of a thing in which there are no cutoffs, no field verification and ground truthing, what we call as evidence. So we had to do this, and there is no legal documents in favor of these people. So we have to create a corroborative evidence which is based on these village level field inspection and document them. So this is how we try to address this issue. It was a successful, of course, I had a lot of issues with the environmental groups at that time. you used to get calls from very, very important names globally as environmentalists that, madam, what are you doing? And this is going to harm the forest conservation. And I said, no, it's a question of survival of people with dignity in these areas. And we are not we are not cutting down forests and giving to people. And this became a state policy. And in 2006, I'm glad to share that these elements of how do you settle legal land rights for livelihood purposes, for a limited bona fide livelihood purposes, became the Forest Rights Act of 2006. So in my whole journey, I actually saw what I tried to solve as one, local district collector, a problem later on became a state policy, and then its elements were taken in a law enacted by Parliament almost a decade and a half later since I had done this. And today, if I was to give you, I was just checking out on the way, today in entire country, in 21 states, 22 lakh families have got their livelihood rights and land rights secured under this act. And I think, so this is one example that I wanted to give, and it was a problem that was existing since post-independence era, and it had so much of exploitation, harassment of the tribal households. They were constantly, if they were sending their cattle for grazing, they would go in the forest compartment, there would be criminal cases lodged, they would be running from court to court, and the Forest Conservation Act was very, very draconian. So there was no kind of, reprieve from that. So I think that is one example I can say of exact conflict and some kind of resolution of it in a very, very institutionalized way, with people's participation, but with certain legal frameworks. Now, another example probably I could give you was Food Security Act. So from a field, I will give you another example. At the national level, when I was associated with NAC, which was looking at social legislations from the Prime Minister's office. And there, this whole thing of why you have heard that we've not had mass deaths during COVID is not because of some other, of course, there was a lot of issues about labor movement and all that misery that happened because of the lockdown, certain lockdown and unpreparedness of many sections of people, especially the unorganized sector. But two things that really acted as a safety net and continue to do for Indian rural poor. One was the Mahatma Gandhi Narega National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, which allows people to demand work in rural areas and open work, with which I was associated. And the second major law that was passed earlier was National Food Security Act. Now, I was part of the convening of the Food Security Act consultations. I almost held 47 working group consultations with different stakeholders over a period of 1.5 years for Food Security Act. And the Ministry of Agriculture, our own council people, the National Economic Advisory Council of the PM, and the activists associated with food security, they were all at loggerheads. There were no consensus at all, and everybody had very, very solid grounds of reservations. The Ministry of Agriculture felt that if we are going to legislate a law which gives free rations to people, and tomorrow there is agriculture, suppose the crops fail, productivity comes down, there is some kind of famine situation, how will the state live up to its guarantee? The Economic Advisory Council and Finance Ministry felt that how do we guarantee India's population, burgeoning population, the kind of subsidies that will be required, it will only enhance the deficit. The food activists, they were reeling figures after figures saying that India's hunger index is worse than sub-Saharan states and countries, and you have to address the basic issue of food inequality and hunger. And between these, we tried to map each and every, we had separate consultations with each of these groups and then aligning, understanding what are their primary concerns and how do we bring a situation of mediation in which at least if not everything can be according to everyone's wishes, that at least we mediate some of them to address their major concerns, so that there is a possibility of creating some policy framework to give some food security to the poor households of this country. So to address this question, I cannot go for a long time, but just to tell you, just to give you a flavor, we had to create categories of households, very poor and general households. So we had a differential entitlement of food rations for them. Now this was not liked by activists, but this was a compromise, because if you're not getting anything at all, but they wanted universal, similar kind of uniform entitlements for all citizens across the country, we had to distribute it to address the concern of productivity as well as the financial thing for the Economic Advisory Council. Similarly, there was a problem that you will only be focusing on Punjab and already Haryana, they are the grain procurement areas, and other states will set to not to benefit. So we extended the procurement basket to millets and other varieties, and the food grain can be taken from other states and they can participate. And there was number of PDS reforms and other things that was suggested. I think no other intervention which was done earlier in the many years ago, nobody knew about the Food Security Act, but actually the entire social security that came during COVID and this distribution of grains that we talk about, actually the foundation of it is in the Food Security Act. But I was just trying to give you a sense of two different laws and the issues that where the parties or the stakeholders don't see eye to eye, and they say it's an impossibility to even mediate this kind of thing, but it is possible. It is possible. And what I then understand in my own limited experience, of course there are stalwarts here sitting and experts, that there are fundamental things that people, if you are out to find a solution to a complex problems, there are some basic attributes. And I think those attributes are very simple, commonsensical. You can link them to yoga principles, or you can say that they are basic ethical issues of any good to be a good human being. Basically, I think impartiality is one. You should not be seen as partisan or aligned to anyone. You should have a reputation that you mean business and you are committed to public interest in whatever position you are. I think that is the trust of different stakeholders in you is very important. Sometimes it comes from your professional reputation, sometimes it comes from your position, but it has to be earned. And that is very important, that trust. Otherwise, when you are mediating at any point of time, that any action of yours or can be misinterpreted. I think listening is very important. Okay, I'll close now. Listening is very important, active listening. Thirdly, intelligence, the basic thing to be able to map what are the conflict issues, which are the parties involved, who wins and who loses. And this you have to map without any sense of judgment or your own moral kind of, your own baggage or what is right, what should be and what should be not. No, you should be able to do it very dispassionately. I think if you are able to do these attributes with an impartial thing, with trust, with active listening, with a basic understanding that what are the perspectives, what are the interests of people, and nobody wants to lose. So you have to address their concerns. Then I think a way forward is possible. I think all the yogic principles that we talk about, whether it is, yam, asteya parigraha, which is non-greediness and non-stealing, which would translate anyone into a person who is, who is contented, who is not looking for making any money out of any hidden agenda. That only will bring you trust. That entire yogic principles of, contemplation, dharana and dhyan and focus. I think that entire yogic principle, whether you do vipassana or you do breath work or you do pranayam, of being sakshi, being able to, we were taught in Harvard when we were doing a leadership course where Professor Ronald Heifetz used to say, take a balcony view. So when you are playing on the ground, once in a while you go back, step back, take a balcony view before you go back to the game again. So I think that Sakshi Bhava, what Justice Chandra CJI Honorable said in the morning, that you should be able to step back and, and not be fixated to any views or identities. I think these are the principles that I have found very, very useful in taking these and resolving some of the conflicts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, all the panelists. And I think amongst all of you, from all your speeches and your experiences, one thing comes out that when Dr. Balyogi said that there is no other, basically even in mediation, all we request is building empathy for the other, so that there is no other. And building empathy, whether as an administrator or as a judge, eventually, how do we build empathy between warring parties or adversarial parties is what all the crux of these very, very interesting perspectives, that is what came out. I would love for question answers to come in, but I think we are running out of time and it is more important to give our other panelists a chance to speak. So we'll take question answers in the end. I request if you all have questions, please note it down in your phones. And in the end, it becomes an open house for whoever wants to stay back and ask questions. But right now, if you allow us, can we go to the next session right away? Thank you. Thank you so much.
That was an extremely interesting session. Thank you, dear speakers, for sharing your experience and providing us with such varied perspectives.
It'll take us about 5 minutes to rearrange the panel. So if you'd like a little break, the washrooms are on this side. And there is Deval here who could refresh you with a small yoga break that actually Dr. Bhavnani worked with you all on this, but there's something else that can refresh you. So just give us 3 to 5 minutes to rearrange the panel and the floor is yours.
Oh, hello, namaste. Feel. So not very heavy stretching, of course. Yes, we'll just stretch ourselves. Sorry, it's very ready. Okay. So very slowly, very gently, just bend yourself to right side. Very simple bending to right side. Just feel your spine when you're doing it. Lots of people suffer from scoliosis these days. So this very simple bending, very simple bending. Hold it for some time. When you're holding it, keep your eyes closed and just feel the muscles. Just feel the muscles which are stretching, which are giving you some pain. Slowly go for other side. Very slowly go for other side. Just hold that there for some time. Just for some time. Just let the pain happen. Let the pain happen. Let the pain happen. Pain is a part of life. Just observe the pain. Slowly come back to center. Very slowly, very gently come back to center. Now, both the palms on your buttocks like this, on your lower back like this. And slowly, very gently look up and slowly, very small backward bending. Very small, very gentle. In this, if you want, you can keep your eyes open and look up. Sure. Slowly, very gently, come back. Yes. Come to sitting. Everyone, keep your eyes closed. Yes. Baki. Okay. Yes. Keep your eyes closed. We'll do a very simple pranayam. Brahmari. Just for a minute. Keep your eyes closed. Both the palms, Gyan Mudra. Keep your eyes closed. Inhale and start making a humming sound like this. Feel this humming sound. Observe. Feel the vibrations. Feel the vibration. Feel these refreshing vibrations traveling to your entire body. Keep your eyes closed. Feel the vibrations. Be antarmukhi. Try to look inwards. Just for 30 seconds. Keep your eyes closed. Keep your eyes closed. Feel these vibrations traveling to entire body. Try to keep your spine straight when you're doing so. Just 2 rounds more. Just 2 rounds more. Just a round more. Very good. Slowly place your palms in Namaskar Mudra and start rubbing your palms. When you're rubbing the palms, feel the energy. And simply place your palms on your eyes. Keep your eyes closed. Feel the energy of your palms. Just observe the darkness in front of you and very slowly let your palms down. And very gently, very slowly let your eyes open. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Deval sir. With really refreshed body and mind, let us now proceed to session 2 of the symposium based on the subject, Balancing the Emotional Mind and the Rational Mind. I invite our esteemed panelists, Justice Mridula Bhatkar, Dr. Alok Sharma, Dr. Birendra Saraf, Dr. Rajan Welukar, and moderator of the session, Mr. Ashvin Bhalekar on stage. I invite Mrs. Bharti Kavde, Principal, Kaivalya Vidya Niketan, to please come forward and felicitate our panelists and moderator of the session. Our first panelist is Mrs. Mridula Ramesh Bhatkar, a former judge of Bombay High Court and known in the judicial circles for her forthrightness, hard work, and courage in discharging her judicial duties. Mrs. Bhatkar was a judge of City Civil and Sessions Court, Greater Bombay for 15 years, where she handled extremely sensitive cases on organized crime as a special judge in MCOCA Court in City Civil and Sessions Court. She was elevated to Bombay High Court in 2009. At heart, she is a true karma yogi, making an impact in whatever she does. She's also an actor, poet, sportsperson, and a wonderfully skilled writer. She has authored 2 books and published many articles. She is presently serving as the chairperson, Maharashtra Administrative Tribunal. We are delighted to have you with us, ma'am. Our next panelist is a living legend in the field of neuroscience, Dr. Alok Sharma. Dr. Alok Sharma retired as a professor and head of the Department of Neurosurgery at LTM Medical College and Hospital in Mumbai. He is presently the director of Neurogen Brain and Spine Institute and the KLS Institute of Anti-Aging, both in Navi Mumbai. He is also the president of the Society of Regenerative Medicine India and vice president of the International Association of Neurosteratology. He has published 172 scientific papers, authored 24 books, contributed chapters in 19 textbooks, and made over 200 scientific presentations. He is a world-renowned pioneer in the field of cellular therapy for neurological disorders, having treated more than 13,000 patients from 102 different countries. His landmark accomplishments include the publication of the world's first scientific paper on the role of cellular therapy in autism. He has received numerous international and national awards and accolades. We welcome you, Dr. Alok Sharma. Our next panelist is Dr. Birendra Saraf. He is one of the most popular senior advocates in the legal circles of Mumbai and widely acknowledged in legal circles as an authority on diverse subjects in civil and constitutional law. He presently serves as the Advocate General of the state of Maharashtra. Dr. Saraf earned his law degree from the Government Law College, Mumbai, and subsequently pursued a PhD on the subject of judicial intervention in arbitrations in India. He has served as the Honorary Secretary of the Bombay Bar Association for 6 years. Dr. Saraf is not only a legal expert but an avid reader and a passionate artist at heart. Please welcome Dr. Birendra Saraf. Our next panelist, Dr. Rajan Welukar, is an academician par excellence. Dr. Rajan Welukar presently serves as the Vice Chancellor of Atlas Skill Tech University, Mumbai. He has earlier been the Vice Chancellor of Oro University of the University of Mumbai, of Yashwantrao Chavan Maharashtra Open University of G.H. Raisoni University. Mr. Welukar holds a master's degree and PhD in statistics. He is a passionate educator, radical administrator, and an excellent capacity builder. He has authored various books and articles on diverse subjects. We welcome you here with us today, sir. Mr. Ashvin Bhalekar will be moderating the panel discussion today. Mr. Bhalekar has been practicing as a lawyer for the last 26 years in Mumbai and is an expert in civil trials. Advocate Bhalekar holds 2 master's degree in civil, constitutional, and mediation law. He is an avid reader and passionate researcher of the Bhagavad Gita and Upanishadic literature. He has extensively studied ancient Vedic literature and is currently pursuing doctoral studies on the topics related synthesis of wisdom in Bhagavad Gita and modern conflict resolution. Thank you for being here with us, sir. I now hand over the proceedings of this session to the moderator. Over to you, sir.
Holding a more informal session in the form of question and answers. And we'll just skip the dais and we'll be comfortable in our own chairs. So it is both an honor and privilege for me to be here as the moderator of this panel discussion, which promises to deal with a topic of profound significance, namely the intricate and delicate balance between the emotional mind and the rational mind in the process of conflict resolution. Now, conflicts arise from interplay of diverse expectations, perspectives, interests, and needs. What makes the exploration in this particular panel discussion particularly intriguing is the fact that conflict resolution is not merely a cerebral exercise. It is a delicate dance between the emotional and the rational facets of our being. And as we navigate the process of conflict resolution, we find ourselves at the crossroads of emotions and sentiments on one hand, and rationality and logic on the other hand. Now, striking the right balance between the two is often the key to a meaningful conflict resolution, which eventually paves way to a harmonious coexistence between the conflicting parties. Today, our distinguished panelists, each an expert in their own right, will share their insights, experiences, and thoughts with us. We are indeed privileged to have these esteemed individuals who bring a wealth of knowledge to the table and diversity of perspectives. Now, without further ado, I start the panel discussion. However, before I start, let us all be mindful of the fact that this is not just an intellectual deliberation here. This is an opportunity for all of us to collectively introspect and develop and foster a more meaningful and wholesome approach towards a conflict resolution. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our esteemed panelists with a round of applause. I'll start with someone who we are all used to address as Your Ladyship. But today, as the moderator, I'll take the liberty and address you as Mridula madam. So, ma'am, we are talking about these two separate and distinct facets of human cognition: rational mind and emotional mind. Now, mind itself has been a topic of great research, and we are yet to know fully about the aspects of mind. How do you look into these two distinct concepts?
Few days back, one newly passed out and very recently taken sanad, a lawyer was arguing before me. And I found that he was not properly answering the queries. So I called him in the chamber and asked him that what's wrong with you? Otherwise you are absolutely okay. And I have seen you twice arguing before me. And he answered, Madam, kuch chemical locha ho gaya hai. And this chemical locha, when Dr. Karindikar said, and I think Dr. Alok is also here, to find out exactly scientifically what is the chemical locha. But whatever chemical locha, we call it mind. And mind means, I consider is cognition, action, and feelings. So if we try to understand mind, it is very difficult to define mind. Then it is a mind can be understood, it is a function based. We are all animals. All animals, a human being also animal, we have feelings. So with feelings the animal is born. And when I talk about and when I started thinking about this mind, I realized that the topic is about the emotional mind and rational mind. So the organizers had tried to distinguish these two aspects of mind. I think that you cannot distinguish between these two aspects of mind. It is always a fusion. Emotion and rationality, it's a fusion. If you are asked to define, or if you are asked what is shore, a seashore, whether it is a sand or a water, and you will not be able to say whether it is only a sand or only water, but you will say that it is a sand and water means it is a shore. So it is as good as we have emotions, also reasoning, rationality, and it constitutes mind. It is said in Marathi, Swabhavala aushad nasta, but Swabhavala aushad asta. And we can work on ourselves and we can find out our own medicine. Sant Ramdas, I don't know you have heard about him, but Sant Ramdas, I mean he's an author of Ganesh, Manazi Shlok ne Arti, Jayadeva Mangala Murti, that he wrote that Arti, Ganesh Arti and Das both. He addressed his mind as a Mana Sajjana. He is the only one who said mind means oh pure mind. He identified mind with a purity. So it is a mind which is a pure, and then he started his entire Manasya Shlok. So without emotions, our mind can't be there, and without reasoning also, there can't be mind. We talk about IQ and also EQ, emotional quotient, intelligence quotient. But today, we are coming across AI, that is artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence has reasoning, it has cognition, I say cognition, it has action, but there are no feelings. That is what I understand. I am a layman about this in the world of science of AI, but I understand that AI has no feelings. But AI can write even judgments. AI can argue, but AI has no feelings. And I feel that is the one that it should not be given to AI, but the scientists in the world, if at all they can give this feelings to AI, then it will be a living organism and it will be a supreme animal. And I feel it will be a very scary situation that AI may dictate the whole world. So this is what I think about mind when you ask me the question. Yes.
Dr. Alok Sharma. Now, so it is said that the seat or the principal base of the mind is in the human brain. Now, as a neurosurgeon and as a neuroscientist, can you explain to us as to how the structure of the brain influences the functioning of the emotional and the rational mind? Exactly what is the way of functioning?
So at the outside, first I'd like to thank the organizers, Subodh, Tanu, the entire organizing team for arranging this wonderful meeting. And it's such a great sharing of minds. All right, to answer your question, I'll try to make it as simple as possible. Humans have evolved from lower animals. So life started as a single cell, it became multicellular, then we had fishes, amphibians, reptiles, mammals, and then human beings. Our bodies have evolved the same way. The gills of a fish became the lungs of animals. Likewise, our brains also evolved. So in the earthworm, the nervous system is just in the center. Those of you who have dissected earthworm in school, it's just one thing in the center with the ring. That ring was the genesis for today's brain. That ring became bigger and bigger and bigger and formed the brain. Now what has happened is that at a reptilian level and at a what is called basic mammals, there is what we refer to as a primitive brain that is, we call it the hot brain, which is instinctive. This is a brain that deals with passion. It deals with basic desires like hunger, thirst, sex, fear, anger. Everything that you see in lower animals is dealt with by that brain. Now, on top of this, in humans, a human brain evolved. That's called the neocortex. So actually, inside all of us, in the deep part of our brain, medically referred to as the limbic system, is an animal brain. It's identical to that of a dog, a cat, a camel, or a tiger. So inside our brains, the limbic system is exactly the same. You take a dog's limbic brain, superimpose it, and it is the inside of our brain. So this is the instinctive brain. This brain does not think of consequences. It reacts in the here and now. Because in animals, living is about two things: about food, about sex, and about saving your life, danger. So this is what the primitive brain revolves around. Now the higher brain that evolution has given humans, this is the brain that has reason. It's got rational. This is the brain that's got logic. It's got language. This is the brain that's got symbolism. Now, unfortunately, this upper brain evolved very fast. And there's a theory, it's called the Papez-MacLean theory, that explains this. In the history of evolution, nothing has evolved so fast as the human brain. In 500,000 years, this whole brain evolved. The problem is that this brain sits on top of a brain over which it has no control. Normally in evolution, something higher has control over the lower. But here, in the words of the person who described this, there are a few screws loose between the higher brain and the lower brain. So the higher brain tells you what is good, bad, right, wrong, and you have a lower brain that just is instinctive. All our human problems, all conflict at its base has a problem between what I'm referring to as an older or limbic system or mammalian brain and the higher brain. Now, to understand this in a wider context in humans, the human species is the only species of animals that kills its own species on a large scale. Through war, we kill hundreds and thousands and millions of our own species. No other animal kills itself. In the jungle, there is only one legitimate reason for killing, and that is food, or sometimes territory, or to show aggression. But no other animal kills its own species except humans. Okay, there is a great dichotomy between the way we deal with our personal lives and how we deal with society. So the basic inner brain, okay, it is more self-assertive. The higher brain is a little more integrative. And what is required, and there's a debate, which is more important, which is more powerful. I believe both are important because they both are our brains. You can't say your legs are not important, your hands are. You can't say any one finger is more important. They both belong to us. And what is required is them working in synchrony and in harmony. Just to give you a few examples from history. Mahatma Gandhi, he got freedom through non-violence. It had never been done before. But it was his, he didn't use his, primitive brain. His primitive brain would have been an angry brain. If you see Mahatma Gandhi, he did not hate the British. He just wanted freedom from the British. He didn't hate them. That's why in World War II, he supported the British. If he hated the British so carnally, he would not have supported the British. Okay, he was respectful of the British, but he was also that we want freedom from you, and we got freedom from the British through non-violent means because of his higher brain working without letting. Now, his lower brain, okay, was the one responsible for the passion to get the freedom. The fire inside him that we will not give up. So you require an integration of both. The same is true of Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela was in jail for 2 to 3 decades. But when he came out, he was not angry with the whites. He didn't go back and take revenge. Imagine being in jail for 2 decades. But to come back and to not take revenge, that's what kept the nation together. Right? So, there can be multiple examples. One classic example of both the advantage and disadvantage is Israel. Okay? Some of you may remember the Sinai War, 1969. Israel won. They destroyed the entire Egyptian Air Force. They won. But they used their higher thinking and gave back to Egypt the Sinai Peninsula. Okay, they actually gave back land which they had conquered. But in the process, you know what they did? They bought peace which has lasted for 60 years between Egypt and Israel. By giving away a piece of very important land, Israel got peace from a larger country. And what happened now was when Hamas attacked them, it triggered their primitive brain. Because and so you see the response was immediate. So here you can see too, a primitive animal-like response, and we see the consequences, and you see a higher brain response, and you see the consequences of that. Did I explain?
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That brings to Dr. Saraf. So, Dr. Saraf, basically, as an eminent lawyer practicing for more than 25 years, you have been very closely involved in the process of conflict resolution. Now, this necessarily involves dealing with aggrieved parties, their grievances, their serious allegations against each other, their mental processes. Now, CJI, in his inaugural address, referred to certain yogic methods for seeking mental balance. How do you perceive this whole concept of seeking a balance between the rational and the emotional mind?
Firstly, let me tell you that every dispute has a genesis in an imbalance between the rational and emotional mind. If the rational and emotional mind of both parties were perfectly balanced, there will be no dispute. And I'll give you that with a few examples. A commercial dispute, let's take a very simple commercial dispute. There is a sense of entitlement. I have paid you, you give me back my money. But when you see litigations very closely, you'll realize that it's not that simple. Very often, behind the plaintiff who is sued for money is an officer who was insulted by the defendant sometime. So it's his emotional mind which says, I will never settle this matter, I will teach you a lesson. In some of the defendants, there is this desire that let this litigation drag. After a little tiring them out, I'll settle at a lesser amount. So what the first person, the plaintiff, has forgotten is that while he's letting his emotional mind overcome the desire of a practical solution, he is ultimately losing out on valuable hours. I've always given commercial parties an example of man hours. I say just value your man hours, the number of man hours you're losing in this litigation. and value them. It will be much beyond the claim which you are trying to pursue in court. So far as the defendant is concerned, he is only applying a realistic commercial thing that I'll save money without realizing that he will lose his commercial credibility. So this is a simple commercial dispute. Much more complex, of course, are the interpersonal disputes. More often, fights between siblings, fight between parents and children, fight between husband and wife, each one of them is a clear and simple imbalance of the rational mind and an emotional mind. In a fight of an estate, a father has left some property and both the brothers are fighting. The rational mind says that this is what my entitlement is. My father's property, we are two brothers, I should get 50% of it. The other brother, of course, is not willing to give. Now, in this, if there is an emotional self which comes in, which says ultimately in a simple language, bhai ye mera thoda zyada le lega, what will work? So that's where that emotional mind here has gone in the background, and it is the rational mind which has come to the forefront, and that person is thinking only with his rational mind. If he were to think with an emotional mind, he would understand that ultimately I will get this 50% of the estate, both the parties, the defendant as well as the plaintiff, but I lose a brother. I lose a brother, I lose a family, I lose all my relations with him, because in the process of that 50-50%, they will make so many allegations against one another that those relationships will forever be irreparable. So these are simple day-to-day examples. You want to go to historically, what was Mahabharata? Mahabharata was a clear example of an imbalance between the rational mind and the emotional mind. What did the Pandavas, according to Mahabharata, ask for? According to them, they had a sense of entitlement. They thought, this kingdom is mine. First they said, give me 50%. At some stage, they sent Krishna as a mediator and said, give me just 5 villages and I don't want anything more. So that was their rational mind leaving behind a sense of entitlement. And at the same time, it was a balance between their rational mind not to fight and an emotional mind which told them that why should I fight with my family? So they went and asked for 5 villages. What was the denial? The denial was an emotional mind which wanted to act out of anger, which wanted to spite them, which wanted to harm them, and lost all rationality. The rational mind was just not operative, and they denied that demand also. It's then that in Rashmi Rathi's, there's a Hindi poet called Ramdhari Singh Dinkar, and he wrote a book, Rashmi Rathi. It is in that he says, Krishna then says, "Ab yashna nahi, ab ran hoga." So the battle took place when all attempts to balance the emotional and rational mind failed. If that would have got balanced at some place, we would have never had the battle of Mahabharata. So the core of any dispute is an imbalance between the rational and the emotional mind. And if you come to litigation, I'll just take 2-3 minutes. If you come to litigation, this conflict between the rational and emotional mind is faced by every stakeholder or every participant in the process of a dispute resolution. One of the party approaches the lawyer. His rational mind tells him, this is a client. I'm going to earn out of him. I will succeed in this matter. I'll get a good judgment. People will notice me arguing this matter and I'll become successful. Then there is an emotional side of his values, his what he learned from his parents, which tells him that if I can get them to settle, why should I not? In his endeavor for a rational mind to succeed in the matter, he wants to do certain things which may not be proper as a lawyer to do, which might not be ethical for him to do. But his emotional mind, his values will tell him, don't do that. So that is the balance. If the lawyer cannot strike that balance, then the dispute will never get resolved. The third comes the judge. The judge has a set of rules within which he has to decide a dispute. There are written laws, there are written procedure, and he is bound by that. That is what distinguishes our courts of law from a kangaroo court. Now, if that judge were to purely act on emotion, he sees that man, the accused, he feels, isne kiya hai. He sees the victim's family, he sees the victim crying, and he feels, no, I need to serve them justice. Now, can he at that stage act only on these desires or his emotional belief without acting within the four corners of the law? That is the internal conflict, emotional and rational imbalance which a judge has to balance out. Suppose the lawyer misbehaves in front of him. He does something which is really not done. Is he going to harm his client? Is he going to pass a judgment because the lawyer has done something? That is the balance of the judge between the emotional and the rational side. And what does a mediator do? A mediator identifies which is the mind of each person which is now prohibiting a settlement, and then show him a mirror, bring about the other side to the forefront, place it before him and show him what he has to lose in gaining. There is very often, if both parties were to ask themselves this question, that in winning, what do we lose? That is the answer which will completely resolve all disputes. As I say in Hindi, kya khoya, kya paya. That is the balance between the rational mind and an emotional mind, and that is the test of a true mediator. So according to me, this is broadly the contour of a imbalance between rational and emotional mind.
In winning, what do I lose? Quite profound. I come to Dr. Welukar now. So, as we explore the intricacies and complexities of mind, certain issues like focus, concentration, empathy, or clarity of mind come into play. Now, these are all internal processes. So, how important is it, according to you, to focus on these internal processes to seek a balance between the emotional and rational mind?
Thank you. Pandya got injured in the recent World Cup which we had in our country. And then there was a replacement. So I got an opportunity because somebody could not attend this, who was a psychologist. And I am a statistician. And my PhD is in coin tossing. And you know, in coin tossing, we talk about the unbiased coin. If you look at it from the coin tossing angle, here there are two sides, but this coin is not unbiased. One side is emotional thinking and the other side is rational thinking. It is a biased coin. Even the coin which we are tossing is a bias. Recently it has been proved that whichever side is on the upper side, there are more chances that will appear. But the probability is just little higher, 0.08. So one of the person has tossed almost 350,000 times and all sort of coins in the world, and he got that result using the computer. Now here also, I consider this as a coin. You have one side as emotional thinking and the other side as rational thinking. When you are emotional, your behavior is reactional. You react. Somebody says something to you, without thinking you just react. Action is taken by somebody and you are losing control of yourself and giving that control to somebody else. So you will have to look at the emotional thinking from this angle. But if you really want to balance this biased coin, which is biased towards emotional thinking, then what you will have to do is your thinking has to be responsive. Don't react, but you respond, as he has said, of higher brain. The moment you respond to somebody's action, then that helps you to balance your life, the emotional life and the rational thinking. That will reduce the bias between the two. Of course, in Sarvasar Upanishad, if you look at the 5 koshas which they define, and the 4th kosha, which is Vigyanmay Kosh, if you really understand Vigyanmay Kosh, then you can make your behavior responsible behavior. What does this Vigyanmay Kosh says? Vigyanmay Kosh says that if a thought comes to your mind, then just don't react to that thought, but just you stand away from that thought. The moment you are away from that thought, you become aware of that particular thought. Where comes the third person? When you are talking in terms of the court and in terms of conflict resolution, there is a third person who's judging, isn't it? So if there is some conflict arises in your mind through the thought which comes to your mind, then just become a third person. And then you will become aware of that particular thought. When you go to a third person, his perspective is different because he is not involved in that. The moment it happens, you start getting the solution. And therefore, always you cannot go to the third person. Always you cannot go to the third person. And therefore, your mind needs a training. The moment you train your mind through this Vigyanmay Kosh, through the meditation, through yogic practices, I am sure the number of court cases will be less and number of conflicts will reduce in this country as well as in this world. And therefore, the yogic practices and the meditation practices and understanding your thought process. Mind is a flow of thoughts. So if you want to stop that, you need to meditate. The moment you stop, you manage your energy. So it is an energy management basically. And that helps. And that has helped me also. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhatkar. Mridula madam, I'm aware that you have been a yoga practitioner for last few years, and it has been an important part of your life. Now, how do you look at yoga and different methods of yoga as an element in the process of achieving a balanced life?
Ashvin, first I say I don't like to be balanced in my life throughout. What is balance? Balance is a word which is always concerned and related to body matter and a rule of gravity. So gravity, it balances everything. So when gravity presumes control and the rules, you want to be controlled and to be ruled by something continuously, so you want to be balanced. I just ask myself, I consider this workshop or it's a open thinking, a louder thinking. Then I remember a quote, a very good quote. Intuitive mind is a sacred gift and rational mind is a faithful servant. We cannot say that emotionality stands on a lower part and rationality stands on a higher part. What we need a management of our emotions and rationality. Sometimes some decisions we need to take emotionally. Sometimes we need to be imbalanced in the life, and we can still yet manage our emotions and our reasoning well. I give example, CJ has said and Advocate General has also mentioned about the functioning of a judge and staying away from the feelings. And it can be explained very well by giving the example of a theater artist, a performer. If at all an artist, he enters on a stage and he has to perform a role of a drunken person, he doesn't require to drink himself, to be drunk. What he uses is techniques, is a technique of alienation. It is a principle, a theory of Stanislavski. He has laid down a great, that in a drama, when you enter the stage, you have to remember, you are not that, but still you are that. So this theory is always required when you balance. It is I always explain, I can explain you with through the art and artists. When, take example like Kaushiki Chakravarti or Kishori Amonkar, they sing. They sing with emotions and also with rationality. But we have to, when it is, they are trying to connect, relate with the audience with sur. Sur, when they say sa, and then one artist has to take it as a ni, that ni, it should be ni or sa, tara saptak or kharj. That is what is laid down, that is a study. So the artist has to apply, rationally has to apply, but you have to, but the singer has to lift the audience emotionally. It is very emotive. So it is lifting emotions with rationality. So it is always a fusion. We cannot say this is bad, this is good. I will just, one point, I'll make a point and I'll leave it to you. Women are always said that they are more emotional. Like emotionality is always given kind of a minus and the rationality is given plus. So it is not always like that. Then you try to find out, at least I get some answer, that why women are called emotional, because they are supposed to be more controlled, more ruled. That your behavior pattern should be like this. You are to do this. Some are rebellious, some are not. Then we come across their misplaced emotions. And we feel that no, the women are more emotional. They have to be more balanced, more rational. This is what is a society. That's all.
Thank you, ma'am. Come to Dr. Sharma. Doctor, dissent is an integral part of any conflict. And brain is segmented in different ways to emote differently. So is there any compartment in the brain which produces dissent? And what is actually happening in a human brain when it is in a conflict situation?
Right, that's a very interesting question. So, dissent is part of human society. However, there are two ways of looking at dissent. There's dissent, of course, there's religious dissent, there's political dissent, there is academic dissent, there is a lot said about medical dissent. But dissent also sows the seed for society's future development. Many things which started as dissent have now become mainstream, whether it was slavery, whether it was gender equality, whether it was, there's so many issues that we earlier considered to be, that was started dissent. I'll talk about medical. There was a person called Semmelweis several hundred years ago who in a dissent said that maternity wards where the children are delivered should be sterile. At that time, there was no concept of sterility. Okay, he was considered a dissenter. To have a clean operation theatre was considered dissent, but now it is mainstream. In IT, you're aware of Napster. There was a time when he started distributing music files free of cost, and you're all aware of the Napster case. Today, everybody listens to digital files. Okay, so Napster showed it was dissent, but it showed us a direction for the future. So many dissents actually have the seed for the future. However, although dissent, I think on dissent there should be debate, there should be discussion, there should be deliberation, but unfortunately, an attempt is made by the establishment to put it down. The definition of dissent, if you put it in some way, is when an individual's opinion clashes with that of society or of the government or of regulators. When there's a clash, that's dissent. There's an establishment. I myself, for example, I was just introduced as, I was told about the work. So, my work was introduced that I've pioneered cellular therapy for neurological disorders. When I started this 15 years ago, I was the biggest dissenter. I was attacked by 99% of the medical community. Attacked openly, attacked viciously, and they're still doing it because I had the courage to stand up and say that damage to the nervous system can be corrected, that children with disabilities like autism and CP can be integrated back to normal life, that people who are paralyzed can get power back to the limbs. I said something that was believed to be heretic. Okay, 15 years down the road, I've treated 13,000 people from over 100 countries. I have 100 scientific papers. So my dissent is now gradually becoming mainstream. So, but where does dissent come from? Dissent comes from what we refer to as the neocortex or the upper brain. So in the brain, it's not a higher or a lower, it's just physically situated on top. There is the primitive brain and there is the human neocortex. So the neocortex, when it starts making distinctions, when it starts separating from what is the right of the individual as compared to what society says, dissent starts from the higher mind. But the response of society is from the primitive mind. It is from, at a baseline level. So the response back is primitive. And at that time, it is important in conflict resolution to not go back the same way. So if somebody attacks you from a primitive mind, you don't attack back with the primitive mind. Okay, you use your intellect and then you counter them with your results. I had 1 million people say the million nastiest things about me and I never said a word back. All I did is I continued my work, I continued my science, my publications, and today my results speak. I didn't utter a single word against anyone, right? So dissent has to be handled with a balance between the higher mind and the lower mind. There are a few things I must add here, something about the human race, why it's peculiar, and why conflict happens. Apart from the fact that we have literally true brains inside us, humans also have the ability of language. This is something which lower animals don't have. And a famous philosopher said, wars are fought on words, not for territory. The majority of wars are fought on words. And it is because of these words that we can rabble-rouse. And people like Hitler and other dictators have what they do. How do they arouse mass passion? By reaching out to the primitive brain of people. And when you reach out to the primitive brain, they now work as a mob. So there is a distinction between an individual thinking and a mob thinking. Okay, so in a riots, two people of different religions who have stayed together for years, one will suddenly attack the other. That is not because the individual is attacking. That's because the mob mind takes over. And there's an explanation for that as well. Human beings, so that's one thing, language. Very powerful, we can write and do beautiful things, but also the most dangerous thing that has divided us. Language is cohesive within a group, but language is disruptive within groups. That's why language becomes, so what is cohesive within can be disruptive together. And the last thing that we have, our humans have the ability to use the hands, all right? And because we can use our hands, we make weapons and we use weapons. Others can't do that. And one last thing peculiar about humans, when we are born, among all the animals, we are dependent the longest. A deer when it's born can start walking immediately. Most animals are independent within a few days of human beings need over a year. Because of that, we are dependent. We are dependent. We like to become parts of groups and tribes and religions because of the fact that our first year was one of dependency. So this thing of dissent has all these factors weighed in.
Thank you. Well, I'm told that we have certain time constraints, but I'll take 2 quick questions. Now, Dr. Saraf, you spoke about the balance and the synthesis of two minds. Now, These are, of course, ideal states, and no one can claim to be in a balanced state of mind all the time. Now, how challenging is it to be in the position of a Advocate General of State of Maharashtra, dealing with all the sensitive matters that come before you? How do you deal with that kind of a pressure?
Let me confess, I'm hardly a good example of a very good balance. I'm at the highest a work in progress, and I continue working on myself as much as I can. You're right, the job entails handling things and situations which at times are immensely stressful, which do cause a conflict in your mind also. But finally, you have to balance it by one, realizing that though you are the Advocate General of a particular state, you have an equal duty to the court of whom you are a part first, and secondly, an equal job or a duty to the society at large. So, whenever I get a PIL, whenever the court takes cognizance of any matter against the state in a PIL, and I find that this is a PIL which can help the society, my first impact, the first thing I tell myself is, this is a God-sent opportunity to me to be a participant in doing something good. And thereafter, I try to gather the state machinery. I try to motivate all the officers and say that, see, this is our opportunity. Let's try and bring about a difference. So while this post has its responsibilities which you need to discharge, it also gives you various opportunities by which you can do some social good, you can bring about changes, and maybe small changes, but over a period of time, small changes make the difference. So the perfect balance is never there. You'll very often find me losing my mind, but at the end of the day, after losing the mind, so long as you are conscious that you lost your mind and you shouldn't have, so long as you acknowledge to the other person that you shouldn't have done, that I think is the balance which you can arrive in a day-to-day world.
My last question is to Dr. Welukar. So you are associated with various universities in your long, illustrious career, and you have had an opportunity to shape up young minds who suffer from biases, anxieties, etc. How crucial it is to train the young minds in this process of conflict resolution?
We need to empower them. The moment you allow them to take decisions of their life by creating an environment, they are ready to listen to you. Otherwise, all that you are telling, they will hear you but not listen to you. And therefore, the most important thing is, how do we empower them? When you are empowering, it is like a buffet. You are keeping 300 dishes and let them decide what is good for them. But you have to tell, if you eat this, then this is the effect. If you eat this, this is the effect. The moment you do that, they will feel that they are taking the decision of their life. That is the first step which we have to take. Else, today's generation is not going to listen to you. Gone are the days when we studied and then we used to listen to our teachers. Number 2 is good influencers. We need to bring good influencers in their life. Because this generation, life is shaping through influencers. Now, how do we bring those influencers into their life? That is the role of educational institutions. The moment we do that, the transformation in them starts taking place, because they know that it is my life. I have been empowered. I will be responsible for my life, for future. Then they will take the responsibility of themselves. Very difficult to do all these things, because it is always said that knowing what to do is not the problem in our country. Everybody knows. Not doing is the problem. But more than that, not allowing to do is the bigger problem in our country, in public institutions at least, which I have seen. We want, but in the private institutions, we can do, which we are doing through this formula. One is empower them so that they take charge of their life. Second is bring good number of influencers in their life and also bring good examples. Sometimes you have to take a risk. Sometimes you have to respond emotionally also. I'll just give my story and then stop. I conducted a national integration camp in 1995 of around 200 girls. One girl came from Pune, a very poor girl. And then she suffered from appendicitis. And she was on the deathbed. Then I took her to the doctor. The teacher who came along with her, this happened in Nagpur, the teacher came along with her, said, I will not take risk because you have to write to the doctor to operate. The doctor will not operate. She refused, she started crying. The girl was on dying bed. I tried to contact her parents. Parents were not available. They left Pune and gone to their village. There was no phone. I could not contact them. At that time, I had to take a decision and I gave in writing, the risk is mine. Anything would have happened. But sometimes you have to take an emotional decision to save somebody's life. If it would have been different, if she would have died, then the story would have been different. But sometimes you have to take a risk in your life. That is what I would like to say.
I've highlighted the problem. Now, just in a few seconds, I'll highlight the solution. So the mind resides in the body, and a healthy body is pivotal to having a balanced mind. The two things that help in balancing the emotional and rational mind, one is meditation. There is no question. The entire purpose-based science of meditation is to balance out between the emotional and rational mind. Number two is yoga. In our body, we have two nervous systems. We have a conscious nervous system and an autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system controls our inner functioning, which are not in our control. This has got two parts, the autonomic, parasympathetic and sympathetic. The sympathetic nervous system is responsible for stress, for the fight and flight reflex. So like imagine a lion is chasing a deer. The deer has to run for his life. So his blood pressure has to be high, his heart rate has to be high. The body has to get glucose, the bowel movements have to stop. Now, if you notice, all the things that we need to save our life, when we are stressed, we are using a system which is meant to be used once in a while, all the time. And all modern illnesses, diabetes, hypertension, everything, spondylosis, constipation, are all because of overstimulation of the sympathetic nervous system. There is a balanced nervous system called the parasympathetic, which has the exact equal and opposite effects. Brings the blood pressure down, heart rate down, lowers the sugar. And yoga has been shown to stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system. In our medical college, at the LTM Medical College, we did a big research project with our own staff. And we very clearly showed that when you do yoga, naturally, your body's parasympathetic or the relaxation or the reparative system. So the sympathetic nervous system is used to save your life. So it uses up all the body's energy. The parasympathetic repairs. Normally, we don't give our parasympathetic enough stimulation. So yoga is the single most important thing. I believe if Putin had done yoga and meditation, we would not have had a Ukraine war. I'm completely convinced of it. So, apart from that, just 3-4 more simple things. It has been found that a well-hydrated body is able to manage these things better. You need 2 to 3 liters of water. When you are dehydrated, your basic animal brain is more activated. 2, you need to have enough sleep. You'll notice if you have not had enough sleep, how you are. Do you know how you are? You're irritated, hyper, you're responsive. So 8 hours of sleep is mandatory. So water, enough hydration, sleep, a good natural diet, the kind of lunch we had today. The reason for that is not just the nutrition. If you have a good diet, you have a good bowel movement, you don't have constipation. If you have a bad diet, you're constipated. And when you're constipated, there is a scientific concept called the leaky gut. where things which are supposed to be pushed out get reabsorbed in the blood. This includes gases like ammonia which go to the brain, and then your basic brain is actually more activated than your higher brain. So and of course exercise. If you find that if you do 30 to 45 minutes of exercise, the balance between both of these blood circulation gets streamlined. And one simple action, this is what I found. When we are upset, angry, depressed, sad, your natural tendency is to look down. All right? Just do one thing, just look up. If you just look up, you see a wider perspective of the world, and suddenly, instead of your animal brain being activated, your higher brain. Just try it. Anytime you're depressed, you'll notice you're down, just look up and suddenly everything changes. And I'm going to end 30 seconds with a very interesting story that changed my whole life. This happened in the Kutch earthquake, 2001. You may remember it, Republic Day. I was leader of a medical team that went there. We went right in the middle of a village, and we were, we were using a Bhalekar to operate. Please bear with me. This is a really interesting story because it altered my life. But when we went there, half the village, people were dead. Half. 200 ka village tha, half were dead, 100 were living. But when we reached there, we reached with the military. We reached on the 4th day there. The village seemed very well organized. It didn't look like half the people are dead. Every house was broken. And we started operating on a Bhalekar, started doing whatever. And then I asked the local villagers, how come, there's so many of you, didn't survive. How come this all seems so organized? And he told me something that altered my life. He said, when this happened, the village elders got whoever is still survived together and gave them only one instruction. Nobody will look at what we have lost. We will only look at what is still there and try to salvage that. So the lady who was cooking for us, she had lost her 3 children, her husband, her house, everything was gone. She was in the farm, so she survived. And what was she doing? She was cooking for us. And I looked at that woman and I said, this woman should be crying and howling, and she is looking after us. And after that, first they were told this, and then second, everybody was given a job to do. Everyone. You look after the kids, you look after blankets, you look after food. And their job became their rehabilitation. So in the middle of the worst disaster that I've ever seen, in the middle of death, I learned a very fundamental principle of life, that all of us have some things and don't have some things, but human nature focuses on what we don't have. Somebody has health but may not have wealth, somebody has wealth, may not have love. Human mind focuses because, our primitive brain focuses on that. If we use our higher brain, like these villagers did, they saved more lives by not letting their basic instinctive brain, which should have been crying and upset, and use their higher mind to save the lives of many. So that's all we need to do. Just look at what we have rather than what we don't have, and just look up. Thank you.
So ladies and gentlemen, this awareness is the key, and this self-awareness eventually paves way for self-reflection, which is the focal point of the next panel discussion. Due to time constraints, I have to conclude here. Thank you very much, our distinguished panelists, and I pass on the baton to the next panel. Thank you.
Thank you. Enabling self-reflection in law and in consciousness. Our panelists of the session are already seated on stage, and to felicitate, I invite Mr. Bernard Brito. Our first panelist for session 3 is Justice B.N. Srikrishna. Justice Srikrishna is a scholar and jurist par excellence. He retired as a judge of the Supreme Court of India and thereafter has been bestowed with chairmanship of many commissions by the Government of India, including the one on drafting of data laws and financial sector legislative reforms. Born in Bangalore, he was brought up in Bombay and graduated with a bachelor's degree in science from the Elphinstone College of the University of Bombay, received an LLB from the Government Law College, Mumbai, and LLM from the University of Bombay. He holds an MA in Sanskrit from the University of Mysore, a diploma in Urdu and a postgraduate diploma in Indian aesthetics from the University of Bombay. He knows 11 languages, including his mother tongue Kannada. He was appointed as a judge of the High Court of Bombay in 1990 and elevated to the Supreme Court in 2002, from where he retired in 2006. We are extremely honored and proud to have him guide us as the chairman of the advisory board of Kaivalya Dham. We are obliged to have you with us, sir. Thank you. Our next panelist is Dr. Bhushan Upadhyay. Dr. Upadhyay joined the IPS in 1989 and held many posts, slowly rising up to ranks and finally retiring this November as the Director General of Police and Commandant General Home Guards, Maharashtra State. A gold medalist in MA Sanskrit, Sir has secured many medals and rewards to his credit that include the Special Service Medal, Indian Police Medal for Meritorious Service, President's Medal for Distinguished Service, apart from civil society awards like Maharashtra Urdu Academy for Literary Sciences and Philosophy, and has published 3 books whilst working as an officer. He has written both in English and Hindi on mind management, the great managers of the world, and the Mahabhashya or Dhvani Vichar. It is an honor to have you with us, sir. Welcome. Our next panelist is Dr. Praseeda Menon. Dr. Menon is a psychologist and has over 10 years of work experience as a research officer at the Scientific Research Department of Kaivalyadham Yoga Institute. She conducts research on the psychological and mental health aspects of yoga. She believes in inclusive practices in school education and over the years has been working to introduce yogic practices to children with special needs and to their educators and caregivers. She serves as an assistant professor at the GS College of Yoga and Cultural Synthesis and is a recognized PhD supervisor of the college's research center affiliated to the Kavikul Guru Kalidas Sanskrit University, Ramtek, Nagpur. We welcome you, ma'am. Our next panelist is Mr. Prathamesh Popat. Prathamesh D. Popat is a lawyer, mediator, and trainer. He started his career in 1991 as a counsel in Bombay High Court and moved soon thereafter to the field of mediation. After initial trainings in India at the High Court, he took further trainings in US, Europe, and Australia. In 2007, he received his accreditation as a mediator from LEADR, Australia. He continues to take advanced trainings from institutions across the globe. Sir Prathamesh has a solo practice under the name and style of Prachi Mediation Chambers and is situate in Fort Area, South Mumbai. Thank you for being here with us. Moderator of the session is Mr. Abdul Nasir Sheikh. Mr. Nasir Sheikh is the Group CEO of the Lexicon Group of Institutes and the Associate Editor at Pune Times Mirror and Civic Mirror. Mr. Sheikh is a leadership life coach with the PCC accreditation. He has been recognized by India Today, where he stands amongst the top 10 inspiring young business leaders from India and was awarded the most innovative business leader of the year in 2022 at the iconic Business Summit and Awards. We are obliged to have you with us, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. So I guess keeping in context with the conversation, we're sitting in conflict today. We're sitting in conflict with time. And I guess I'll have to move from moderator to mediator between what we've got to discuss and the end of the session. A lot of us, and I'm sure I think nearly every one of us has a look at a mirror every day, and maybe more times than once. How do we get out the inner mirror within and relate it back to enabling self-reflection in law and consciousness in India is the conversation that we are going to have today. We've got an esteemed panel out here with a wealth of knowledge. But before we start and we move on, I want to say thank you to Tanu and Kaivalyadham for giving us this opportunity, for having this interesting conversation that can set the tone for us moving forward. So, Sir, Justice Srikrishna, sir, to start off with you, sir, with the wealth of knowledge that sits with you and the knowledge that's there in our text, our ancient texts, how do you see that coming forward and us utilizing that for self-reflection, law, and consciousness?
Remember what was said in the previous session, particularly the good doctor was mentioning it, that there is this limbic aspect of the mind and the rational aspect of the mind, and how the limbic aspect helps you by an emotional activity in response to a situation which is described by the people in the medical sciences and the people who study animal behavior as the response of either fight or flight. And he rightly said that how the blood pressure increases, the oxygen level changes, and various medical issues that he talked of. Look at it from the ancient perspective. This is exactly what was said, but in different context, in different terminology, that we are unable to connect them. What did the ancients say? Ahara nidra bhayamaithunani samanyametat pashubhirnaranam dharmo hitesham vishesha hetuhu dharmena hina pashubhis samanaha. See, the instinctive behavior is fourfold, which was rightly pointed out: instinct of hunger, instinct of fear, instinct of reproduction or sex, and finally instinct of sleep. This is common to the animal kingdom and is also there in the human beings. What is it that elevates the human being from the pashubhi, from the level of animals, is this concept of dharma. Now, dharma is a word which has been much abused. So every time you talk of dharma, you think of conflicts and maramari and I kill you and you kill me. Dharma is a very compendious word. As far as we are concerned, dharma is the ability to restrain yourself by prescribing the rules of behavior. Now, take a cow or a dog or a cat. It will eat whenever it wants to. It will defecate wherever it wants to, whenever it wants to. And of course, it will do acts of reproduction wherever it wants to. Now, the humans have a rule for it. They will say that I will have breakfast at this time, I will have lunch at this time, I will have dinner at this time. I will eat only this or I will not eat, depending on where you used to. And various other activities, which are all kept under restraint. This ability to restrain your lower impulses is what was called by a great name, dharma. Now, that is the one that distinguishes us from the animals. Otherwise, we have the same instincts as far as animals are concerned. And how does it come about? It comes about because of conscious exercise of mind. That is why our great ancients have said, Mana eva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayoho. Your manas is the one that will help you in restraining yourself. It will also help you in liberating yourself, whether it is in the realm of the earth or whether in your realm of daily subsistence or in terms of moksha in the Vedantic sense. In the morning, I quoted from the constitution of the UNESCO, where it was said that since wars begin in the minds of persons, that is where the defenses against war and peace and in favor of peace must be constructed. This was reproduced by the UN General Assembly, which the Honorable CJ also repeated. Now, all conflicts begin basically in the minds. Why does it begin in the mind? If somebody mentioned in the morning, I think the doctors have done a lot of research on this subject, I must confess. They have gone into this way back, Vasishtha Ramayana, where Vasishtha teaches a whole lot of things to Rama. That was the first occasion when this kind of doctrine was advocated. Conflict resolution. That's a little more complicated because there is too much of Adhyatma in that, and Adhyatma is not very acceptable coin today. Then we come one step down to Mahabharata time, where Srikrishna was a good teacher of this subject. And Arjuna is a very smart, in fact, I would consider him as a very smart lawyer, cross-examination. He tells him that Imam vivasvate yogam proktavanaham avyajam vivasvan manave praha manurikshvakave pravit evam parampara praptam evam rajarshayo viduhu sayava yoga mayadya proktam bharatarshabha. So he says, this I had told to Vivaswan told to somebody else. So Arjuna is a smart cookie. He doesn't accept this just because the good Lord says it. He says, how do I know this? Aparam bhavato janma param janma vivasvataha kathamesad vijaniyam tomado proktavaniti, etc., who are very senior to me, who are very great persons whom I respected, to whom I did namaskar every day. How am I going to kill them? So this emotion takes over. And because this emotion takes over, the good Lord has to He does a very psychological thing. Psychologists will agree. What do they say? He says, how did this concept of, he uses a very strong word, because for a Vera to be told that you are imported or Napumsaka is the most greatest insult. Today it's not an insult, that's a different matter. In those days it was a great insult. So he asked him, so how is it that at this Vishame, in this odd moment, you are acting like a fellow who has no guts? So he says, no, get up and fight. So he gives him a whole lot of rational arguments, whole of 18 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, that. Turning then to the question of conflict. Arjuna asks a very relevant question. He says, how is it that a person who wants to be always good gets driven by impulses and acts in a bad manner, although he wants to be good, he doesn't want to do it? So, the answer given by the good Lord is very interesting. He says, Kama esha krodha esha rajo guna samudbhavaha mahasano mahapapma vidhyena mihavairinam. He says, this is driven because of the basic instincts of Kama, that is desire, Krodha, which is the anger. Now, non-fulfillment of Kama leads to Krodha. Now, if you look at it, why does conflict arise? Conflict arises because of A, desire. I have no money, I want money, so I pick somebody's pocket. Or I'm already a millionaire, but I want to be a billionaire, so I will pickpocket him. So, or I'm already a millionaire, but I want to be something more. This is Kama. Krodha, I am unable to meet this target of mine. So what do? I'll ruin him, so that I'll be the great man and he'll be pauper tomorrow. Then Irshya. How can this fellow succeed? I want to succeed, so I'll pull him down and I want to go ahead. These are all the instincts that arise in the mind. Now, how does yoga and Kaivalyadam come in the picture? That was not pointed out in the morning. The very second, for yoga, atha yoga anuशासनम, this begins the instruction of yoga. The second sutra of Patanjali is yoga chitta vritti nirodha. Yoga is the ability to control your mind. Your mind is, in fact, the Upanishad gives a beautiful simile or a metaphor and says, mind is like the driver of a charioteer. It holds the reins of all the horses and it can direct them where they should go. The interesting thing about a horse is if you let go the reins, the horse will start running wildly. So this beautiful metaphor is used in the Upanishads. So if that is so, then it is the mind that needs to be controlled. Where do you find the conflict? In your mind. It is the mind that tells you, I don't like this man, let me kill him. I hate this man, let me do something bad for him. I want more money, so I'll take it from him. So what did our ancient text tell you? He says, they go back to the Kathopanishad or the Ishavasya Upanishad. Ishavasya says, what should you do? Jiji vishet shatakam samaha. So you must have an ambition to live for 100 of years. But with what? You should not magrithaha kasyasid dhvanam. Don't take away somebody else's property. This is what the Bible also tells us. This is what all our religious texts does. Now these are the instincts which develop yoga. Develop conflict. And these are the conflicts which arise in the mind. If in the mind you nip them in the bud, then you have become balanced. So you become what? Tasmad yoga yudhyasva yogaha karmasu kaushalam. Bhagavan says, yoga is nothing but karmasu kaushalam. The ability to do something in a skilled manner. What is the skilled manner? Not merely being skilled in a physical sense, but the ability to foresee the results and act in a manner that does not hurt somebody else. Samatvam yoga uchyate. Again, Bhagavan says, what is the samatva? To ability to balance yourself. Balance not in the sense of physical gravity or anything like that. The concept of your animal instinct as against your rational thinking. How do you balance each other? Sometimes it is necessary to have the doctor was absolutely right. Sometimes it is absolutely necessary to have this, because if there is, let's say, a tiger is attacking you, then you can't rationalize and start thinking and say, this, should I do this, should I not do this? Then you have to run. If somebody comes and wants to fight you, you either fight with him or run away if you are weak. That is where the limbic portion of the brain should take over. Rest of the time, think of the consequences. Hey, what will happen to Kinnu me, what is that? Kinnu me, I keep forgetting this. These are things which I studied long, long ago when I was a kid, and at 83, it's difficult to remember all of them. Aharaha paryavek, sorry, I'll come back to it now. Aharaha paryaveksheta naras charitamatmanaha kinnu me syadidam kritva kinnu me syad akurvataha. You must have a balance sheet of yourself every day. What is the balance sheet? Whatever I do, what is going to happen? What is the consequence of this on me? Kinnu me syad akurvataha. If I don't do this, what is the consequence? Now, if you have this balance sheet, then there is no question of conflict. Because this balance sheet will help you in saying, let me do this, let me not do this. That is the ability that yoga teaches you. In fact, in the Patanjali Sutra, after saying that Chitta...
Yes, sir. Robert, will move from, after sir, we'll move to you as the next question.
One second.
Yes, sir, please take your time. Please take your time.
This is the question that Arjuna asked him also. Athakena prayukto vayam papam chariti purushaha anichannapi varshneya baladivani yoditaha. Then, in the yoga's part of it, what is relevant is this. What does yoga do? Yoga helps you in attaining a balanced nature.
Just take the mic, sir.
Yoga helps you in attaining a balance in nature.
I'll just request the audience to stay silent, please, and respect the speakers.
Yes. Conflict is inherent in every nature, every situation that we arise. Yoga helps us to balance it. Then, yoga is skillful action. I already said, yoga karma kaushalam. It gives you an open mind, which helps you in rationalizing the consequences and acting in accordance with what the original thinking was called dharma. It also helps you in ignoring mistakes of others.
Right.
Because that is one of the source of irritation always. It helps you in practicing friendliness and helps you in developing an atmosphere of non-violence. In fact, one of the Patanjali Sutras says this, no? Ahimsa ahimsa satya asteya brahmacharya parigraha yamaha. Then ahimsa pratisthayam tatsannidhau vairatyagaha. So a person who practices ahimsa consciously will be so good that the people surrounding him, the society will not do vaira. That is why if you see Kalidasa's description of the Kanva Muni's ashrama, the beautiful word he says is, hey, how is it that all the pharaoh naturae, the animals which are animals by himself, by nature, enemies by nature, are so friendly here? They are not friendly because somebody has fed them some good food or special kind of diet. They are friendly because the persons who are staying there, the rishis, were adept at this. This is the thing that yoga teaches us. And if that is so, himsa is not there, then what? Finally, again that was mentioned in the morning, I'll just repeat the words of Shankaracharya, Adi Shankaracharya. The great Shankaracharya says, Tvayimai sarvatraiko vishnuhu vyartham kupyasi maya sahishnuhu sarvatratvam pashyatmanam sarvatrotsraja bhedajnanam. This should be probably the thing arising from the Constitution of India itself. He says, Tvayimai sarvatraiko Vishnu. Vishnu is the good Lord. Call him by whatever name you want. Or you call him by an entity like Parabrahma, it is there. It is there in you and in me. I'm talking of somebody with whom I have a conflict. Vyartham kupyasi maya sahishnu. Why are you unnecessarily trying to be angry with me? Sarvatrotsruja Bheda Jnanam. This Bheda Jnana is something, again it was mentioned in the morning. Dvitiya Dvai Bhajam Bhavati. That is the Brihadaranyaka. Te tasmin udaramantaram kurute asatasya bhayam bhavati Taittiriya Shruti. All this tells you that if you distinguish between yourself and somebody else, there is consequential fear. He may do something to me, he may not do something to me. All these consequential fears will come up. So finally, sarvatro thruja bheda jnanam. If you remove this kind of bheda, then you have no conflict at all. And that is attained through various disciplines which start from yama niyama asana pranayama pratyahara dharana dhyana samadhi. It goes all the way, all the Ashtanga yoga. So, but unfortunately, everywhere in the West, when you talk of yoga, you think it is some kind of an exercise. Instead of dancing, zambu, what is Zimbo or what is something? It's Zumba. You do yoga. No, it is not an equivalent of Zumba. It is not. It's
more beyond.
It's much beyond you. Zumba doesn't give you this balanced mind. Yoga gives you this balanced mind. Zumba doesn't cure the ills of society. Yoga helps you kill the ills of society. And that is the greatness of yoga. And that is where great people like Patarshi, all the Maharshi, Patanjali, all the way down taught us yoga darshana. It's called darshana. You know, the word darshana in Sanskrit has a very peculiar meaning. Darshana can mean simply sight. It means your view of life. It is your ability to look at life by the yogic method. Then you have the answer to all the questions that you're raising and you can possibly raise.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing that. While Sir was speaking, there were a few words that came out. There was balance, there was pain in terms of bias. From there, we moved to the word fairness. And from fairness, let's take justice. So, Popatsa, from your perspective, what's the role fairness and justice plays for you as a mediator? And how do you see that in terms of self-reflection?
0. For the simple reason that fairness, justice, everybody has a different concept of it, and it differs from moment to moment. If someone comes to my door and I give him a cup of tea, it's not fair or just to him because he just wants a glass of water. And after some guest comes to my house and I give him just water and then tea, then he doesn't feel being treated fairly because he's hungry. So what he wants, I have to first find out and then serve him accordingly. And I would just like to tie down your question with another concept that we have in mediation. It's a whole branch in mediation called conflict coaching. So when we have two parties before us, we do a mediation. But for some reason, one party, there is a no-show, or there is for some other reason only one before us, then we do something called conflict coaching. We do that also as part of mediation in a separate session where we work with the person how they would like to maybe, for example, apologize or some such thing. So when we do conflict coaching, we have it on a one-to-one basis. At that time, we have that opportunity to go a little deeper and allow that person a wider platform of vulnerability and at the same time safety, that whatever they say will be between us. So they open up a bit more. And when they talk to us, we get a deeper sense of really what they want. At that time, we realize that maybe they are not getting a sense of what really is going to work for them, but we don't say it so. We allow that to play out in a way that they can hear what they are saying. And I am sitting coincidentally under the logo of Bombay Bar Association. So I recall at one time I used to be on the standing committee at the Bombay Bar Association several years back. That time some gentleman came to me with some issue. He said, hey, Pratmesh, I would like you to take up one complaint and discuss it at the standing committee. I said, sure, what is that? He said, you see, members die from time to time at the Bombay Bar. But you people have selective prayer meetings. You don't have it for all. How fair is that? Either don't have it at all have a prayer meeting for everybody. Initially, I did try to talk to him, but it was not working. So I said, very well, I'll do it. I'll take your complaint to the committee, standing committee, we'll discuss it, but on one condition, that should I complete 100 years, you will ensure that there is no prayer meeting for me. अरे ऐसा क्यों बोलते हो? I said, because I am actually living through this experience of arranging these prayer meetings. It is so embarrassing that a family of 7 comes and hardly 5 of our members are present, just the standing committee members. Nobody from the general membership is present to sit for that prayer meeting. It is so embarrassing. Sometimes we arrange 4 at a time so that साथ आए तो सबको लगे इतना public आ गया है. Nobody knows that they are all themselves family members of one or the other deceased person. So I said, it is so pathetic. And we went to such a low level that we even announced at the bottom, refreshments will be served. And I used to go down to the library on the 2nd floor to tell people, come up, abhi prayer meeting shuru hone wala hai. So I told him, look, I don't want my family members to come here and see, this is what my father earned by neglecting and ignoring me, coming here for 20 years and hardly 20 members are present. So, मुझे 100 साल होए तो please don't arrange for any prayer meeting. If that is understood by you, then on that basis I will take it forward. Immediately he turned around saying, I withdraw my proposal to have a prayer meeting for everybody. I said, क्या हो गया अभी? मैं बोला ना मैं, I'll take it forward. नहीं, now I realize why you don't have it. I said, it's like this. Khatu Upar expires, Firdos Talyar Khan. I think the biggest crowd we had attending people of members was at Firdos Talyar Khan, youngest member who died in the mountains. I have never seen even any senior council getting such a vast gathering for the prayer meeting. But it's not possible. Nobody knows me. Nowadays I do mediation, so some people know me, but अगर कल मैं लुढ़क जाता था उस टाइम पे कोई आता नहीं था बंदा. And this is not something which you want to see your family members. Now, therefore understand that I did nothing. I only made him hear what he was saying and what it entailed. Moment that happened, he understood and he no more had a conflict. He himself withdrew. नहीं तो बात बर्बाद नहीं करनी है. So this is what it is, that for him it was correct. It was fair and just to insist, या सबका करो या किसी का मत करो. But when I spoke to him, he immediately realized कि fairness, justice इधर नहीं चलने वाला. सभी के लिए public नहीं आती है. That's all I will.
Thank you. So playing with the mind or psychology, as you say, or understanding of it. So taking psychology and yoga and its relation for us to kind of relate it to understanding self-reflection and consciousness. How would you kind of put it forward, Dr. Praseeda, from your perspective?
That question. If we talk about self-reflection, and if we talk about the science related to self-reflection and also the social science and the psychological science related to it. So if you search with the word self-reflection, there won't be so many hits. So we can kind of broaden that word to a more scientific word, which is very popular these days, contemplation, contemplative science. So if you search with this word, contemplative science, contemplative practices, it is, you'll get a huge hit with that and lots of scholarly articles coming in. So I will keep it broad as contemplation, and there are a lot of contemplative practices. Yoga is definitely a very powerful one, a very comprehensive one, but we definitely have other practices like Tai Chi and Qigong. And in fact, the contemplative science literature extends it as far as, mindful walking, having focused experiences in nature, any art-oriented activity. So all these sort of practices are supposed to have that sort of contemplative mindset within us. So you would ask, why is it so necessary that we have this sort of activity, and how does yoga contribute to this sort of mindset which contemplation brings? So what happens when we contemplate on anything? What happens when we engage in contemplative activity? So the first thing that would happen is that we are more focused, and due to that, just by sitting silent and doing any activity which kind of centers you within, you are able to relate more to yourself, connect with yourself more. So that brings in that self-awareness, which normally does not come because we are in the midst of so many things. There is so much of noise that we miss that signal from within. So self-awareness is something which is always there within us as humans, and we are privileged to have this awareness of ourselves, which we will call self-awareness, and there is something called meta-awareness, awareness of the awareness. So this is something which humans have inherently. And what happens is, in our day-to-day lives, we somehow get lost in that noise. That signal of self-awareness we kind of miss out on. We lose the signal. And all these contemplative practices, when we just try to even sit still and focus on our breathing, that is what is happening. We are connecting with our inner signal, inner self. So that's the first major, I would say, mechanism as well as effect that happens due to contemplative practices. Now, what happens is, when we are aware of ourselves, automatically there is something within us which tells us, this is good, this is not good. This is something which I should engage in, this is something that is better I don't engage in. So self-awareness leads to self-regulation and more regulated behavior. So these, and there is a lot of research done on this. In fact, there is a whole theory, a tripartite theory, which has come up, which says that all contemplative and mindful practices, they work through the stress mechanism and bring in more self-awareness and self-regulation. And there is research done on this, and it is getting more and more supported. The third factor that comes in is self-transcendence. So all the talk that we had from morning, I, not I, me, the other. So this sort of, that duality, slowly it lessens with more self-awareness, with more connection within. And when we are more connected within, we are somehow indirectly maybe connected with the outer world more. Now, there is research required, and there is emerging research on this part that contemplative practices lead to self-transcendence. But self-awareness and self-regulation, yes, that is pretty much supported. We need more research on self-transcendence. So whatever is being said in our texts related to the contemplative practices, say yoga, research is trying to now slowly support it. And I hope the self-transcendence literature also improves, because there may be some flaws in the research design. Slowly, maybe we improve our research designs, and we do get to see these mechanisms also acting. So coming to yoga, because we are a yoga institute, so we should be talking more about yoga when we talk about contemplative practices. There are lots of things in the Yoga Sutra which we can use as the psychological literature related to how can we be a better human being. So I'll give 2 or 3 techniques which Patanjali has mentioned. So first thing he talks about in the second chapter is about the klesha. And klesha is something which is deep-rooted within us. What are klesha? The deeper afflictions that we all have inherent within us. And he talks of pancha klesha, the 5 klesha, which is the mother of all klesha is avidya, which you can say is ignorance, translated very simply and superficially, but not being able to see things as they are, having a very convoluted view of things. That's avidya, that's the first klesha. And this is the klesha which is very difficult to address. But all the other 4 klesha are kind of the offsprings of these klesha. Those are raga, dvesha, asmita, and abhinivesha. So raga and dvesha are craving. So raga is craving, not the raga as in anger. Raga is craving or too much of attachment, excessive attachment, and that is, we can call it craving. Dvesha is some kind of aversion or repulsion to a certain thing. And asmita is the excessive attachment to oneself. That's the 4th klesha. And abhinivesha is the fear of death. So if you look at these 4 klesha, you will see that asmita and abhinivesha are specific forms of raga and dvesha. So raga is excessive attachment. In asmita, that excessive attachment is to your ego. In abhinivesha, it's the fear of death, so you are averse to death and you are more attached to life. So you can say that excessive attachment and excessive aversion is something that we all have within ourselves. And the Yoga Sutra talks about how do you weaken your klesha. You do Kriya Yoga. So Kriya Yoga is a practice wherein you have a lot of discipline, you do a lot of self-study, and you also have a lot of surrender and gratitude towards whatever you have. So this is one technique that the Yoga Sutra talks about. And if we self-reflect, if we engage in contemplative practices like yoga, then what is the klesha that is determining our behavior, we will be able to focus more on that. And I think all that has been talked about conflict resolution. So if we can see where is the stand that we are taking and what is the driver behind that stand, and is it something that we really want to take, or is it something that we can actually be a little lenient about. So when we introspect and when we see the source of that conflict, all the klesha which are trying to play within us, then that self-reflection, that contemplation makes us more self-aware. And like I said, from that self-awareness comes the ability, the desire, the even drive to kind of regulate ourselves. And of course, this is one aspect. There is also the Ashtanga. The Yoga Sutras give us the Yama, Niyama. I will not dwell on that too much. All of us know about that because so many people have spoken about that. So the Yama and Niyama, so it's like Yama, social codes of conduct. So the Yoga Sutra has prescribed those social codes of conduct. Why? Why do we need that? Why do we need ahimsa? Why do we need satya? It's just that we are trying to harmonize our relationship with the other by practicing those tenets. And those are vows. They are Mahavrata. They are considered to be Mahavrata. So no matter what, if we can fix our attention on those vows and have them as something which guide our behavior, then we have better social relationships. Same way in the Yama. We try to establish ourselves in the Yama of Santosha, Shaucha, Tapas, Svadhyay, Ishwar, Pranidhan. So Yoga Sutra has already given us these techniques. And then we come to asana. So we are starting with our body. The goal of yoga is samadhi. What is samadhi? Concentration. Now, the sages knew that to come to that concentrated state is not so easy. So, you start with your body. And you try to train your mind with the help of your body. And then you come to pranayam, so you're training your breath. Slowly in pratyahara, you're trying to train your mind. And then in the deeper levels where you are able to access your mind, wherein you're fixing your attention in dharana, going deeper into dhyana, and finally reaching that totally concentrated state, which can be so natural also when you're playing music maybe. That concentrated mind gives you an expanded sense of self. And then there is no me and the other. And there is one more technique which was talked about, Pratipaksha Bhavanam. So trying, how do I see that there is something good in the other? In a conflict, you always see the adversarial perspective. So you don't want to see the good in other. So what the Yoga Sutra says, that you may not love your opponent, but can you see something good in that person? Can you substitute your negative emotion with something positive? Like Dr. Alok mentioned, when you're depressed, you're looking down, just try to look up. Same thing. When you are facing so many negative emotions about the other person, is it possible? Yes, yes, sure. So I would say there is a lot of psychology in yoga which can contribute to conflict resolution. Thank you.
So we were talking about the mind and moving from that to you, Dr. Bhushan Upadhyay. Sir, you've had a lot of experience working and looking at in a way criminal thinking. How do you see and your experience kind of, how do you see that bringing self-reflection help a change in criminal thinking?
Hello, thank you. Really, this session is devoted to reflection, self-reflection, and I will confine myself to that. As a police officer working for 34 years in the field, I will try to explain my experience in the context of self-reflection. Actually, I will start with one share of Galib. एक भूल गालिब मैं उम्र भर करता रहा. एक भूल गालिब मैं उम्र भर करता रहा. धूल चेहरे पे ती आईना साफ करता रहा. I am not going to peep into the very spiritual aspects of yoga because that is beyond the reach of common man. How a common man will enrich himself and benefit himself from simple practices of yoga. Because yoga, philosophy, tantra, all these things are very higher dimensions of human consciousness. The first thing, that the entire Indian culture is based upon self-reflection. Vedas, then there was self-reflection, came Brahman Granthas, then there was self-reflection, came Aranyakas, then self-reflection, then came Upanishads, then came Vedangas, Puranas, Ramayana, Mahabharata, literature, Shadadarshan. How this vast and infinite treasure of literature came? It is the product of self-reflection. Self-reflection is the basis of Indian philosophy, Indian culture. When we talk of yoga, Patanjali talks of 8 limbas of yoga. Yam, Niyam, Asan, Pranayam, Pratyahara, Dharana, Samadhi. We know all things. In Niyama, there are 5 Niyama. Shauch, Shantos, Tapa, Swadhyaya, Iswar Pranidhan. This Swadhyaya is self-reflection. What is Swadhyaya? Swa and Adhyay. A study of oneself. Another meaning is a study of scripture also. But the main meaning of Swadhyaya, the one limb of Niyam, is study yourself. Reflect upon yourself. And again, when Patanjali talks of Kriya Yoga, he says, Tapah Swadhyaya Iswar Pranidhanani Kriya Yoga. What is Kriya Yoga? First is Tap, second is Swadhyay, and Ishwar Pranidhan. Now again, without self-study, without self-analysis, without self-reflection, you can't be a yogi. Again, when we go to Vedanta or Upanishad, they say Sravana, Manan and Nididhyasana. What is Manan? Manan is reflection. Then a yogi, a spiritual person has to reflect. Then how he will reflect? It is a very simple process. Just close your eyes, sit and see what thoughts are coming to your mind. There is no need to do anything. Because a man who is not practiced to doing this, he will not do it. But if you sit for 4 days, 5 days, just close your eyes and sit. You will find that you are able to scan your thoughts. You are able to analyze your thoughts. You are able to watch your thoughts. You are able to be aware of your thoughts. And when you, as told by Menon, ma'am, when you become aware of your thoughts, you know what is good, what is bad. See, nobody is going to tell you what is good, what is bad. Our seekers, our preachers, our sages, our rishis, our prophets, they have been telling since time immemorial, this is good, this is bad, but still people are committing bad. Therefore, that is not going to help anything. Scriptures and all these preachings are of no use if you are not reflecting upon yourself. खुदा की मोहब्बत में फना कौन करेगा? खुदा की मोहब्बत में फना कौन करेगा? सब बंदे नेक हो तो गुनाह कौन करेगा? ये खुदा मेरे दोस्तों को रखना सलामत, वरना मेरी सलामती की दुआ कौन करेगा? और फिर देखो कन्फ्लिक्ट, देखो दोस्त की बात बाद में क्या कर रहा है, और मेरे दुश्मनों को भी रखना महफूज सुरक्षित. यहां कन्फ्लिक्ट है. दोस्तों की पहले बात किया, बाद में क्या बोल रहा है? मेरे दुश्मनों को भी रखना महफूज, वरना तेरे पास आने की मेरी दुआ कौन करेगा? तो you have to reflect, and there is no need to do lots of exercises. Just close the eyes and reflect. When I was DIG and ADG prison of Maharashtra, I conducted a simple exercise in all the prisons. Because prison is the place where either people are depressed or they're violent. Because you have no freedom. Freedom is the priceless gift of human beings. All persons want freedom. And what is moksha? Moksha is freedom. Therefore, when your freedom is usurped by somebody, you are the most painful person. Why jail and prison is bad? Because you have no freedom. Therefore, nobody wants to go to jail. Nobody wants, children don't want to go to school because they have no freedom. Therefore, I conducted a simple exercise. I asked them to sit in silence for 10 minutes. You will not believe, for 10-15 days, nobody was able to sit. Because he used to close the eyes and again get up. Because his mind was so restless, lots of emotions, lots of thoughts, lots of negativity, lots of stress. But gradually, what happens? Mind is like a horse. If you train the mind, it becomes your slave, or it comes under control. You can't do anything. But when the mind becomes your master, then it becomes difficult for you to organize. Therefore, after 10 days, 15 days, I told them just see what thoughts are coming to your mind. And I gave them paper, then I start writing. Then there are lots of things we write. Then I told them, I will not tell you that you are a criminal. I will not tell you that you have committed a crime. Just analyze your thoughts sincerely. Because nobody can be dishonest with himself. I can be dishonest with you, but I can't be dishonest with myself. Because when you connect your inner self, then you are true. When you go to your subconscious mind, you are true, because you can't speak lie to yourself. We can speak lies to others, but not to yourself. Then they told, sir, I've committed this crime. Because of this crime, I have come to jail. My family has suffered. My mother died. My child is not able to study. Our entire money was spent in litigation. I have been sentenced to life imprisonment. Then I told him, just think whether it is good or bad. Then clearly, logically, they came, sir, this is bad and this is the mistake which we have committed, and we resolve that we will not do in near future. Therefore, preaching is of no use. That man should realize that I have committed a mistake. And how it will happen? Because all our habits, all our mindset, all our practices, all our phobias, all our negative activities, all these things are stored in subconscious mind. When your subconscious mind gets awakened, then you can talk to it. Because the best thing in the world to talk to yourself. It is said by one philosopher that the greatest gift to be one's own company. Tell me how many minutes, how many hours we spend with ourselves? No. Because solitude and silence is the instrument through which you can talk to yourself, through which you can go inner side. And where you go inside, it is said in Indian concept that originally human beings they are divine. They are Chidananda. And one talk was going on, lots of talk was going on. I will tell only one thing. In yoga, they talk of Antahkarana. There are 4 parts: Man, Buddhi, Ahankar and Chit. The same power is there. When there is confusion, it is Man. When there is decision, it is Buddhi. When there is ego, it is Ahankar. And when there are lots of ideas, that is Chit. Therefore, there is water which is muddy. How will you purify the water? Don't put any chemical in that. Otherwise, that chemical will pollute the water. Just let that water stay. Let it be stable. If the water is stable, after 1 hour, 2 hours, the dirt will go inside and you will see the water. That is a transparency. Therefore, just reflect. Reflection is something which connects yourself to your inner self. And if we connect to your inner self, then you are able to know yourself. It is told, the biggest knowledge in this world, to know yourself.
Fantastic.
You know physics, you know chemistry, you know geography, you know this and that. All these knowledge is useful in a particular manner. But to know yourself, why is a saint so important? Because he knows himself. Why Vivekananda was so popular? Because first he knew himself and he tried to teach others how to know yourself. Therefore, the biggest knowledge is self-knowledge. What is the 3rd sutra of Patanjali? Yogas chitti vritti nirodha. First is yoganusasanam, yoga chitti vritti nirodha. अगर आपने योग से चित्त वृत्ति का निरोध किया तो क्या होगा? तदा द्रष्टुः स्वरूपे अवस्थानम. I am established in my own self. This is the power of yoga. And how you will establish? You have to watch yourself. You have to reflect upon yourself. Therefore, the simple way to sit in solitude, sit in silence for 10 minutes, for 5 minutes, initially for 2 minutes, initially for 20 seconds. After 10 days, you see that transformation starts happening in your life. And this is the secret of yoga. This is the secret of tantra. This is the secret of philosophy. And this is the secret of psychology. This is the secret of mind culture. Thank you.
Due to paucity of time, we'll wrap up our conversation. So thank you very, very much for the insights. I'm sure there are a lot of questions. If there is a way that we can collect questions and then send it across and get answers and respond back, that'll be nice. But thank you very, very much. A big round of applause for the panelists. Thank you.
Thank you, dear panelists, for enlightening the audience with your experience and words of wit that made this session very interesting. Thank you very much. With this, we come to the end of an extremely gripping and insightful symposium. I request everyone to please stay back for the vote of thanks. To convey many thanks and humble gratitude on behalf of the team, I invite Mr. Bernard Brito to propose the vote of thanks.
Agatha Christie had a very famous play which was a classic, and the title was And Then There Were None. On a lighter note, the play surrounds that individuals, one by one, who are in that play, they start disappearing. I thought that after the CGI's departure, many of you all will disappear, but you all were the best. The best is for the last, so let's all clap for each of us here. You all are the best audience because you all remain and you all stood the test. On behalf of the management, that is Shri Subodh Tiwari, our CEO, and Tanu Madam, who is the conceptor, the implementer of this program, we put our hands together. We want to thank you being such a gracious audience and supporting us. The tradition of Kaivalya Dham is we end with prayer. I invite Vrushali to lead us into prayer as we conclude this beautiful day.
Everybody join your hands. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.